increasing mortality rates during summer, and we are now in the almost the summer season in Asia Pacific, especially in dense cities and among the elderly, children, and outdoor workers. In the past decade, severe heat waves has been responsible for numerous deaths or fatalities in Asia Pacific. This includes the 1,000 deaths in Japan and Korea in 2018, over 1,500 deaths in India in 2015, and 230 deaths in Myanmar in 2010. So even if you live in a country which has not experienced heat waves in the past, climate change is expanding the global tropics, both in the north and south, transforming subtropical regions and exposing populations to conditions for which they are not adapted. That result into increasing the likelihood of negative health, negative well-being, and negative productivity impacts. In South Asia, heat waves are likely to increase fivefold over the next few decades and expose greater numbers of people to survivability limits. And according to studies, by 2050, about 500 to 700 million people in Asia will be exposed to 20% increase in lethal heat wave probability. Yet, unlike other natural disasters or hazards, heat is particularly difficult to identify, earning, its moniker or nickname as the silent killer. One reason extreme heat is so elusive is that it occurs both as an acute event, that is, as a heat wave, and in the form of chronic exposure. For example, experienced by the seasonal or year-round extreme heat of tropical regions. So another aspect that makes heat difficult to forecast and communicate is that its psychological impact on human health are composite effect of a number of factors beyond just temperature. So those factors range from high humidity, where you work, what pre-existing condition you have, what your physical surrounding consists of, cooling infrastructure, greenery, or lack of thereof. Human impacts of heat waves are also notoriously difficult to quantify and therefore are largely underestimated. So nevertheless, Mr. Francesco Roca, the president of the IFRC, asserts this silent emergency is preventable and low-cost actions that can save lives during episodes of extreme heat. That's what he said, which I believe true, and all of us can, support and do greater work on this in this area. So this regional meeting is here to enable all of us to identify and understand heat wave impacts, especially via respective national Red Cross, Red Crescent Society sector in the urban areas, as well as to outline this low-cost solution to combat heat wave in terms of loss of lives and livelihoods, which are, I believe, unnecessary if we are not able to act. But if we're able to act, we can prevent, a lot of unnecessary loss of lives and livelihood. So this regional meeting is both timely and highly relevant, and it builds on practical experiences and scientific researches. So through this two-day event or this two-day meeting, as also aimed at fostering collaboration within Red Cross, Red Crescent movement and beyond with scientists, practitioners, and policymakers that is focused on improving capacity to protect population from avoidable risks of extreme heat in changing climate. By the way, colleagues and friends, we could not have organized this event alone, as this is a cross-sectoral effort. So the Red Cross Climate Change Center has been instrumental and very supportive, as well as the networks such as the Global Heat Health Information Network, research and academia such as the Munich University and the National University of Singapore and the UNDRR have worked together to make this meeting possible. So I really look forward to the proceedings of this meeting on how we all can, work together in addressing, the impact and effects of heat waves. That is actually we can prevent, the unnecessary loss of lives and resources. So to all of us, I wish us a very fruitful meeting in the next 2 days. Thank you very much. Over to you, Jerome.
Thank you so much, Gwen, for these inspirational remarks and for opening officially the first Asia-Pacific Heatwave Regional Meeting. So now we are going to give the floor again to Catalina, who will invite us to introduce herself, because we want to know who is in the room, where you come from, and what are your expectations for this workshop. Thank you, Catalina.
Thanks, Jerome. Just a minute, I will just open I will just share my screen quickly. I hope you can see it now. It should be coming through. Sorry, it's taking a while. Can you see the Mentimeter now?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Thanks, Catalina.
Perfect. So thanks, everyone. As Jerome was mentioning, we want to know who's joining us. And we wanted to ask you, please, to write your society or organization and the country you're joining us from here in the Mentimeter. So we will ask, as I mentioned before, we will use a Mentimeter as a tool today to ask many questions and keep a record as well. So please, if you can go to menti.com and use the code 66556694. And you can start posting your answers. And Lucy, if you can help me to share the code in the chat box, I will appreciate it. Thank you.
Coming right up.
Thank you. Great. We're starting to get all the answers, and we have people joining us from IFRC Global First Aid Reference Center based in Paris, IFRC APRD, Asia Pacific Regional Delegation, Australian Red Cross, Japanese Red Cross, Indian Red Cross, German Red Cross, IFRC country delegation Bangkok. We have a Hoang Nguyen from Vietnam, GRC Vietnam country office. We have also from Nepal, our colleagues from Korean Red Cross, Suva, IFRS Suva, calling from Vanuatu, that's great. PMI, Sri Lanka, Hong Kong, National University of Singapore. Just a quick reminder, just to keep your mics muted, please. Great. Sumera, thank you. The national organization, hence Pakistan. Great, thank you. Thanks for joining. We have also Heat Environmental International Trust New Zealand. We have American Red Cross in Bangkok. And we have as well Finnish Red Cross. Sorry if I missed someone, but I'm sure you've been able to share all, to see here on the slides all the answers, so that's great. So next we will quickly go to the next slide. And we want to know what 3 things that you would like to gain from this event. So please tell us 3 quick things that you would like to learn today and tomorrow. And we expect to fill all your expectations. So please give us a couple of ideas of what do you think you could get from this event. Sharing competences. Great. Okay, answers are starting to come through. Great. Create synergies, be inspired. I think that's good. I think we will get inspired with all the great work that we will see between today and tomorrow in this topic. So you'll see. Smart ERR, approaches, knowledge, with all friends, that's also important. Heatwaves way forward, learn, good. Collaboration, okay, that's great. Well, we have a good amount of answers already, and I think learning knowledge and create synergies are the 3 key words. So that's great. We have other amazing and interesting responses, FBF links. I lost one. Guidelines, smart DR approaches, beat the heat. I like that one. So, okay, so that's great. So maybe just to continue, I like how this is the create synergies, knowledge, and learn is the key thing. So now I think, Lucy, do you want to go ahead?
Yes, first of all, I'm not sure about everyone else, but I actually can't see the Mentimeter screen anymore.
Oh, really?
I can
It's
see
a
it.
bit small. Okay, it's not large on my screen. Okay, maybe it's just me. All right, hard-hitting questions. With a diversity of participants from all over, what is a heat wave? Help us define what you think the correct definition here is. Okay. All of the above is in the lead.
We have quite a variety of answers here. So.
We do. At least 3 consecutive days with maximum daily temperature over 30 degrees Celsius. At least 2 consecutive days with maximum daily temperature over 40 degrees Celsius. Okay. Catching up with all of the above.
Yeah.
3 consecutive days with maximum daily temperature over 30 degrees and 40 degrees. Close tie there.
None of the above is also increasing.
None of the above. Yes, we can't overlook that. And one person has voted at least 5 consecutive days with maximum daily temperature over 25 degrees Celsius.
That's good.
I am going to hand the mic to Jerome, our regional resident heatwave expert, to tell us Tell us the answer, Jerome.
The answer. Well, there is a good news, which is whatever you choose, it is the right answer or the wrong one. And I will explain why. You will see. Let me share my screen. Can you see my screen?
I think it's on the way.
It's on the way. I hope it's not a long way. Can you see now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So yeah, I say whatever you have answered is a good answer, because actually 2 consecutive days above 40 degrees, that's a definition in New Delhi, India. And 3 consecutive days above 30 degrees, a definition in Cape Town, Africa, South Africa. While the definition of 25 degrees for at least 5 consecutive days, it is in Netherlands. So I think here the key point is that there is no single universal definition for heat wave, because different temperatures often have a very varying impact on different parts of the world. However, we can try to give a definition, and heat wave is defined as a period when temperature or temperature in combination with other factors are unusually high and hazardous to human health and well-being. So heat waves typically have a noticeable start and end, and they last for a certain period of days. And of course, they have an impact on human activity and health. Actually, the notion of impact is very important in the definition of heat wave. Heat wave is also only one form of extreme heat. Indeed, we have extreme heat which can occur both as an accurate event, like an heat wave, or in the form of chronic exposure, such as in the seasonal or year-round extreme heat for tropical region. So as I say, the definition of heat wave is very much fundamentally linked to impact. And impact on human health are a composite effect of a very large number of factors beyond just temperature. For instance, high humidity in particular is a key multiplier effect of a warmer temperature. So what does it mean? It means that in tropical region, often they are more at risk than they appear to be when you just look at their temperature. Other factors include where you work, the intensity of your work, what existing condition you may have, what are your physical surroundings, do you have any cooling infrastructure, greenery around you, or the lack thereof. We know as well that there is as well a very high confidence that heat waves are fueled by climate change. And there is as well a very high confidence in the projection that climate change will further increase the frequency, the duration, and the intensity of heat wave. Actually, for us in South Asia, heat waves are likely to increase 5-fold over the next few decades, and therefore expose greater number of people to the survivability limit of heat. Another very important notion it is that as a result of climate change, the global tropics expand north and south, transforming the subtropical region, and therefore exposing population to conditions for which they are not adapted, increasing the likelihood of negative health, well-being, and productivity impact. For instance, in Japan and in Korea, the deadly heat wave happened in 2018 and took the life of more than 1,000 people. There are three critical things I want to share with you about extreme heat. First, extreme heat kills people, that's for sure. And here we have some statistics from all around the world. On the top, you have statistics from Russia, where in 2010, an heat wave took the life of 55,000 people. Heat wave as well is one of the most obvious and confident projections that we have for the future. When we look at the different scenario, at 1.5 or 2.0 scenario, in any cases, we can see where heat wave will come. And we will see that the intensity and frequency is increasing as well. Another important point, it is that solutions, simple solutions do exist. And actually, most of this workshop, we will speak about the solution that some of the national society are already implementing. This presentation lead me to the agenda. So today, we will start by looking at heat and health, and we will look at who is the most vulnerable. We will learn as well to perform first aid for hyperthermia, and we'll look at the COVID-19 as an amplifier of the impact of heat. Then as we know that heat waves don't only have impact on health, but as well on livelihood, we will have a specific session on livelihood, followed by a session on urban context. Urban context is very specific to the impact of heat wave. As you will see, there is some amplifying factor there. Then we will have a session on early warning system, how to design them, and I will provide some example. And we will close the day with a presentation from the Climate Center on heat wave guide for Red Cross's branches. As you can see, for each single session, we will have Q&A. So now for the agenda of day 2, what we have on schedule, Lucy?
Day 2, we're moving much more from theory to practice. So we have so many inspiring national societies on the agenda, as you can see, who will be sharing all of their good practices and approaches. So you leave with a wide variety of solutions in your pocket, followed by a very important and exciting session on heat and collaboration, because this is definitely not a topic that we will be accomplishing alone. So we will learn about all of the really important players engaged in tackling heat waves, as well as what networks are available to support heat wave action. And we'll close up with a Q&A and wrap up.
Great, thank you, Lucy. So let's get started then. And the first session we will have is about heat and health, and we will have 3 presenters. First, we will have Madhab Upreti from the Red Cross Climate Center. And we will have as well Salome Boussif from the Global First Aid Reference Center, together with Dr. Pascal Cassan, the head of the Global First Aid Reference Center. Here we go. Catalina, maybe you can share the slide on how to ask questions to our presenter. Catalina? Hello?
Sorry.
Yes, so while Madhab from
Hello?
yes, hello. So while we will have the presentation from Madhab from the Climate Center, Salome and Pascal, the audience is invited to ask them questions. So you can do it 2 ways. The first way, of course, if you can still use the chat box, Teams chat box. If you can use it, please use it. Other than that, you can as well use your mobile phone. And again, go to menti.com and put the code 6655-6694. And then here you can ask your question. Please be as specific as possible, and we would like you to indicate the specific topic, for instance, first aid, COVID, or any kind of topic, to be sure we will ask the question to the right person. So without any further ado, I will give the floor now to Madhab Upreti from Climate Center. Thank you. Over.
Thank you, Jerome. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this regional webinar on heatwave, and yes, for this first session on heat and health. So myself, I'm Madhav Upreti. So I am working with Red Crescent Climate Center as a technical advisor and also the Asia Pacific climate lead. So basically, in today's session, I will be kind of giving you some of the information around the impacts of heat wave, like the who are the most vulnerable, and also later touch on the COVID-19 aspects. So let's begin with the presentation. So can you go to the next slide, Catalina? Thank you. So yes, I think Jerome has also rightly touched upon this as well in terms of the heat wave impact. So while he was defining heat wave, so I think it is really critical to understand the impacts of heat waves, because that basically defines like who are the most vulnerable, like where exactly we need to prioritize or intervene. So normally, like heat wave like impacts like wide varieties of our life, so not just the health, but also in relation to the environment, nature itself, also the infrastructures, the economy, and also the services that we normally receive. So it has a kind of wide varieties of impacts. But if you talk like particularly around the impacts on health, yes, we do see like the direct impacts on health. So normally, we have the impacts in relation to the dehydration. We often see this heat exhaustion, heat stroke, loss of consciousness, and other medical emergencies. And also like sometimes like heat waves, particularly when there is already a bit of this pre-existing medical condition, then heat waves might be quite deadly in those instances as well. So normally, yeah, heat wave has a big impacts in the health. Next slide, please. So yeah, talking about then who are the most vulnerable. So obviously, I think the most vulnerable, the list that at the top on the list would be the older people, particularly the people who are like greater than in 65 years of age. So those are the one like are mostly vulnerable to the heat wave impacts, the heat wave risks. Next slide. Next slide, please. Yes, and also another, yes, I already mentioned in terms of the people who have some of the like pre-medical conditions, like particularly when they are kind of suffering from this kidney diseases or like any kind of cardiovascular diseases. I think these kind of like pre-medications also make them quite vulnerable to the heat wave, because in those instances like heat wave would be quite deadly. It will basically like deteriorate their health condition if they're heat risk. So yeah, so normally like when you discuss around the heat waves, they are referred as like it is referred as a silent killer, because normally it's because we often like don't know like whether the heat wave is really kind of bringing these issues, or is it something like is because of their own some medical conditions or due to their own aging factors, or a lot of things. So these are a bit of like silent killer in heat wave. And also like in most like in number of occasions, we like the death like related to the heat wave are like go unaccounted, because we really do not know whether those deaths were actually through the heat waves or not, because there are a lot of different factors that comes in play in terms of heat wave impacts. So yeah, just like in a nutshell, like who are the most vulnerables? Next slide, please. So yes, another is also around the outdoor, the people working outdoor. I think those are also the most vulnerable, and particularly this is more critical in a lot of the developing and the underdeveloped context, because the socioeconomic conditions in these areas, particularly for these outdoor workers, are really kind of is the worrying factors. So these are also one of the like the key, like the most vulnerable population to the heat wave risk. Next slide, please. And also, yeah, in terms of the people living in these informal settlements, we normally see a lot of these different informal settlements in this developing and underdeveloped context. The slums, because the living conditions in these areas are not like that good to cope with this risks of heat wave. So yes, I think these are also the most vulnerable population to the heat waves. Next slide, please. And yes, obviously the infants, because they are also quite vulnerable to the heat wave risk, particularly the children who have just born or who are under age 5. Those are like likely to see more impacts of heat wave in them. Next slide, please. Yes, as I already mentioned, the old people. Yes. So in a nutshell, yes, when you talk about the population who are vulnerable to heat, particularly relating to the health impacts, then one is obviously the older people, another like the people working outside, the outdoor workers, then infants, and then yes, also people with the pre-existing medical conditions, and then like this one I missed. So it's also like the pregnant and the lactating women. So they are also quite vulnerable to the heat risk. Next slide. So how, like, why? Sorry, back please. So why we normally like term them those people or the populations very vulnerable to the heat? So basically, it's because like they have like different risk appetites, and the risk factors also contributes in making those particular section or the faction of groups most vulnerable to the heat. So basically, when you talk about the people like old people who are over 65, it's because they are quite less aware, and also their body is less adaptable to the extreme heat, so that make them most vulnerable. And also the people with chronic medical conditions like the kidney disease, the cardiovascular. This also like because normally with heat, the symptoms and other gets a bit more aggressive, and also like the situation gets worsened. And children under 5 year old, yes, also because like they normally rely on others to keep them cool. So that's also, and also we need to keep them hydrated. So that's why I think they are also a bit vulnerable, because they have these kind of risk factors. In terms of, I think women and girls are also like termed as a bit of vulnerable to heat waves, particularly when the situation, the way they are living, is not that conducing with to cope with the heat risks. Like if they are kind of uh, in the like if they are not well aware with a lot of these different risks of heat wave. Also they are not like living in a well ventilated rooms, and also yeah, lack of the sanitation, also especially in during the menstruation. That's also one of the risk factors contributing to make women and girls quite vulnerable to the heat waves. Yes, and also the pregnant and the lactating women. Normally, the pregnant woman often like goes to early labor if like following a heat wave. So that's impact like we have a bit observed in the pregnant and also a lactating woman, because the lactating women need to be hydrated quite often during the because they do breastfeed their children. So that also we need to like keep special attention to the lactating women in those aspects. And also yeah, outdoor workers, particularly the traffic people, security guards, and other outdoor workers like those who work like for the daily labor. So those are also quite vulnerable to the heat waves. People living alone, because normally one of the key factor to make people vulnerable is also the lack of awareness. The way I think they are not getting proper awareness, and also not known about the risks of heat wave. Also that also cause like make them more vulnerable to this heat wave risk. So and normally like people living alone, and also individuals with disabilities, because normally for them the access to these different services, and also like to this different awareness is quite limited. So that's also one of the risk factor we see in these vulnerables. And also yeah, any people population living in really a poor socioeconomic conditions, like obviously makes them quite vulnerable to the heat wave risks and its impact. And also yeah, the other in terms of the tourists, also the homeless people. So all because like the important thing to note here is obviously there are like the certain fraction of people who are quite vulnerable to the heat wave risk, but at the same time, if the socioeconomic condition is quite bad, then obviously it puts like those populations by default to the risks to the heat waves. So this is how basically we have seen the vulnerability within this heat wave impacts, and this is something we really need to taken into consideration while making plans, or kind of formulating different response strategies, or doing preparing for the heat waves, because these vulnerables should not be left behind. At least we need to be able to identify these vulnerables, this particular different population, these groups, so that they get special attention and care during this heat waves. So I think with that, I would kind of stop here, and possibly, yes, I'll take back a few questions later. Thank you. Thank you. Over to you, Jerome.
Thank you so much, Madhav, for your presentation. Very interesting, very informative. Yes, we can make a, yeah, let's give a big clap to Madhav. Yes, that's a good thing. Let's clap. Very good. So now I will invite our colleague from the Global First Aid Reference Center, Salome and Professor Pascal Cassan, to take the lead in the next presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jérôme. So here is our presentation. My name is Salome. I'm the First Aid Officer and focal point for Asia Pacific. It's nice to see all of you. And I will be accompanied by Dr. Pascal Cassan, who is the head of the Global First Aid Reference Center. Maybe first, if we can go to the next slide. Thank you. Maybe first, Global First Aid Reference Center. Well, I think most of you knows the Red Cross Red Crescent Climate Center, and we are actually, like the Climate Center, a reference center, but our thematic is first aid. So we are a center of excellence of the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Society, hosted in Paris by the French Red Cross. And we work and collaborate with 192 national society. And here, this is very important because almost all the national society in the movement have a first aid component. So that's why this thematic is very important, and we will go through it in a minute if we can go to the next slide. Thank you. Many national society have a first aid program, as I said, but not all has something related on heat wave management or either hyperthermia. So maybe we will just, in this presentation, focus on the definition. Then Dr. Pascal will give you some tips about what to do and what are the differences between the different illnesses, if we can say. And we will have a short focus on prevention, and we will share with you some tools. But first, hyperthermia, as it is called, is a condition in which the body reaches abnormally high temperatures because it cannot regulate its internal temperature. And it is caused when the body produces or absorbs too much heat or both. So hyperthermia can be mild. It's what we call heat exhaustion, and we will focus more about it in a minute, or severe, and it's a life-threatening condition which is called heat stroke. So a person can experience hyperthermia through intense physical activity or from being in a very hot environment, and this is the focus here in this meeting. So children and the elderly are most at risk, but our colleague Madad just defined all the vulnerable population in the excellent presentation that we had before. So we won't focus on that. And if left untreated, heat stroke can lead to a seizure or coma and be life-threatening. So it is important with this topic in a first aid program to be linked, with other topic like seizure or dehydration. If we can go to the next slide, and I will let Pascal continue for this.
Thank you, Salome. Good morning, good evening for everybody. It's a pleasure to be with you. Effectively, we are talking about what is the difference between heat exhaustion and heat stroke. And you can find in the 2020 guidelines of the Global First Aid Reference Center all the definition, all the scientific base. But here we are going in practice. First of all, the next one. It's how to recognize an heat exhaustion. It's the step where we can do many things, and we have to act accordingly, because we avoid to go to a heat stroke. For heat exhaustion, we have to recognize it, and of course the first one is excessive sweating, and in fact sometimes you are feeling faint, or you have some disease, and heartache for sure, and after your heart be rapid and weak pulse. After you can have muscle cramps, possible nausea, and you are cool, pale, or clammy skin. That's the steps of the exhaustion. Next one, and if it's bad, if we are going on worse and worse, we can have a heat stroke. In this case, next one, it's really a life-threatening emergency, because in this step, the temperature is higher and higher, upper 39 degrees Celsius, and that's terrible for all our organs, as of course the brain and the heart. And at this time, you have some very important signs, as the reddish, hot and dry skin, a big headache, rapid pulse, an unusual behavior of sign of confusion, possible loss of consciousness, and in this case, it became very quickly very bad, and also perhaps seizure, and last and not least, a high body temperature under 40 and more. Next one, what to do. What to do is very important, because of course all the lay people has to know what to do, and of course our volunteers too. And first, if we are on the first step, on the heat exhaustion, we have the possibility to place the person in a cool air as possible, conditioning place or a cold place, and in a comfortable position. It's necessary to cover the person with damp clothes and use fan if possible, give a cool bath, and provide water if the person is perfectly conscious. Carry out the complete checkup, including the temperature for sure, because it's a very important possibility to see if the person is at exhaustion or heat stroke. And last and not least, seek medical advice if possible, if the person does not get better quickly. After, if we are going to the heat stroke, next one, what to do for the heat stroke? It's very clear that at this time, it's very clear that we have to act very quickly. Because it's an emergency, we have to call immediately the emergency medical system, or the equivalent, depending on the country. Second, it's make an active cooling. There is just a little mistake in this slide, is under 26 for the immersing of the whole body, because it's very important to immerse the whole body of the person neck down in water under 26, 1 to 26, and cool the person by splashing room as soon as possible. Make a wind tunnel if we can. Suspending sheets around the person body can be a very good possibility, and apply cold pack on or wrapped ice to the person neck, groin, and armpits, because at this place we have the vessel, and we can decrease the temperature very quickly. We are applying cold pack. Salome?
If we can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So some word about prevention, because for this topic, prevention is very important, and it has to be taken into account by all the program designer and the first aid programmer. So heat can be harmful to you and a lot of group of people. So it's important to stay safe and help other by sharing information to actually beat the heat. So in our platform, I've shared the website. We have some leaflet available and some video also available. We will show you after this call. And during heat well, it's very important to stay well hydrated by drinking plenty of water, and water is the best. So no alcohol or caffeine. And we have to do this before feeling thirsty. And in case of heat wave, spend few hours in a day in a cooler place, like public building with air conditioned or other cool space is also very important when possible. And it's important also to check on older relatives and neighbor to help them to recover or on some injury or illnesses caused by heat wave. Program designers should also consider any cultural or legal implication involved with removing the person clothing and emphasize the importance of dignity of the person. This is an important point also to make when designing a program. And in area where ice or cold water is not readily available, it's important to identify the cooling method that may available to them, such as removing the person from the heat, fanning them, or wetting them if possible. So those are some prevention tips, and here you have a nice leaflet as an example. If we can go to the next slide, please. Now, regarding online information and resources, we have the pictures and infographic extracted from the city heatwave guide, the very good guide that will be presented later in this day. Of course, the Climate Center website, on the GFARC YouTube channel, and I can share it now. We have also some video and other video related to disaster risk management. The first aid guideline, you can see the cover here, but it's also available in an online basis. So you have actually the link already in the chat. And a little word, I mean, it go beyond the heat waves, but we have this first aid at climate change game that we made available for first aid programmer in National Society, and it worked pretty well. So I will share also that link, and it deals with the situation caused by climate change and disaster risk reduction, and the first aid behind it if a situation happens. So that was the resources we wanted to share with you. I think we can go to the next slide. Because, yeah, just to finish, I wanted to mention an international collaborative heat research. So we are not directly leading this research, but we are participating in a network called Red Cross Red Crescent Research Consortium. And the Climate Center is actually part of it. So we are collaborating on this topic, and anyone interested can reach to us. Here are the objectives, and each objective has research question. So we are dealing with the one related to first aid, like for example, what are the effective cooling methodology for certain groups? But we want to contribute to a global baseline of heat wave impacts that are trackable over time, define locally applicable threshold of when extreme heat become dangerous, and understand people-centered implications of heat waves. This one is also important for us, and define and assess actions to prevent the human consequences of heat waves, and explore finally shelter and infrastructure consideration to mitigate health risk. This will be covered by another reference center of shelter. I think we're done there, so thank you very much. You can pass to the next slide. So here are our contacts, and you can reach us through the global website. So thank you for listening, and we are open to questions.
Thank you so much, Pascal and Salome. It was an excellent presentation, and thank you. And between heat exhaustion and stroke, I think it's very important. Very often we hear that there are some confusion. Thank you as well for clarifying how to deal with it in terms of first aid. We will take the question after the next session, which is Mahab. Mahab is going now to speak about COVID-19 as an amplifier of the impact of heat. Thank you, Mahab.
Thank you, Jerome. So yeah, hi again. So yes, so basically, I think because we currently we are facing a different health emergencies, and we from the two presentation earlier, we see heat has a really great impact in terms of human health. So yeah, this is something I really wanted to bring here in terms of how better we could respond or prepare for heat wave when we are facing this another health emergency, the COVID-19 pandemic. So I just wanted to mention here the last year 2020, particularly referring back to the heat waves in England. So what we see in 2020 was really one of the hottest year, and in England, like England basically it reported like almost 2,500 excess deaths. So that means like the number of deaths that was observed during the any kind of heat wave season or a heat wave event. So this was kind of access to that, and it's really hard to kind of correlate these excess deaths with the magnitude and intensity of heat wave alone. So obviously there was a kind of huge factor of COVID-19 in this excess deaths. Obviously a lot of the research would be required to really kind of look into it in depth, but I think in a just kind of overview, we can really kind of see the COVID-19 has like really compounded the risks of heat wave in England. So this is just a kind of bit of example. I just really wanted to bring it here. Next slide, please. So yes, I think coming back to the same slide, looking at who are the most vulnerable people. Yes, I think I already mentioned like people working outside, infants, and the people with pre-existing medical conditions, and also pregnant and lactating women are most vulnerable. And if you talk around like also relate this with the vulnerability to COVID-19, then we see quite commonalities. So that means particularly for COVID-19 as well, like older people are really vulnerable to COVID-19, and also the people with pre-existing medical conditions. Here we can see a quite bit of overlap in terms of the vulnerable population to this heat and COVID-19. So next slide. So then, like, how do we balance this? So obviously, I think it's really a crucial task for us to manage heat, and at the same time, also the COVID-19. Like, how better we prepare and respond to the heat waves during this COVID-19 pandemic. So next slide. So yes, so normally if it was a kind of normal situation like of any other years, then what we tell the people during the heat wave was to go to parks, libraries, senior centers, and other kind of shared public spaces, so that they can then cool down themselves during the summer heat. That is a kind of a very low cost action that we normally like suggest the people to do. But what should we do now? Because we are already facing with this COVID-19, and there is a lot of restriction in terms of physical distancing, social distancing, and also public spaces are closed during this pandemic in most of the countries. So it's really kind of like critical to adapt or to manage these both compounding risks. And also, like if for the if there are kind of their old people or elderly neighbors and the old people in the house, then what we normally ask the young people is to go to them, go to and visit them, so that just to check in whether they are kind of feeling well or not, to have like whether they are properly hydrated or not, or whether they are like staying themselves cool or not. But now the situation is a bit different, because we really practicing this social and physical distancing. Like normally we are not allowed to go and visit the houses where there is already this elderly people. So I think this brings us a really critical questions on like how to better adapt with this heat and the COVID-19. So some of the key messages I really wanted to highlight here is, one thing is obviously because in relation to the frontline workers, particularly within the Red Cross, like Red Cross volunteers or other health workers, they need to wear this PPE. And if they are wearing this PPE and like they are really working in inadequately cool conditions for a long period of time, then it obviously increases the risks of heat stress for those frontline workers, particularly the health workers and other first responders. So this is something we really need to put attention to. And also that the heat stress, the symptoms that we see through heat stress is more or less kind of similar with the symptoms we often see with COVID-19 symptoms. And there is already kind of public fear in seeking healthcare during the COVID-19. So this obviously puts in really worse position that even the heat-related deaths could have been prevented, but just because that we have this COVID-19 thing going, and like there is already a fear among the people to seek healthcare. So this obviously puts them in a lot more worse situation. And also, yes, limited access to this residential air conditioning is also a major concern. And if the air conditioning and ventilation systems are well maintained and operate, I think this is really crucial. Then the risk of virus transmission is not increased. So I think this is something because for to at least cope or respond to the heat waves, we need to be in this proper ventilated system, air conditioning if possible, but also they have to be properly maintained and operated so that they do not increase the risk of virus transmission. So that's something we need to also keep care. And also in terms of the public spaces, beach, swimming pools, slash park, like where people normally are able to kind of cool them down and also kind of have a bit of recreationals. I think this is also something we need to see how better we could kind of have this looking at the COVID-19 thing. Next slide, please. So yes, so I think this is something I really wanted to share here. So there is already a lot of guidance and information series available in relation to the managing heat and COVID-19 together. So particularly, there is a lot of this resource materials being developed from the Global Heat Health network, information network, where like Red Cross Climate Central also contributed. So there is already a lot of information there. So I think it's better our national societies have a look into it and see how better they can kind of adapt the existing plans, protocols in relation to responding to heat waves when during this COVID-19 pandemic. So there's a lot of information. So we need to kind of look into it and see how better we can use these resources just to make ourselves prepare to manage both of these risks. Next slide, please. Yeah, and this is also the same, the guidance materials, particularly adapted for the national societies, Red Cross branches, and this is it has been adapted from the information series developed by Global Heat Health Information Networks, and this is really like nice guidance materials, at least for our national societies, because it has a lot of checklist relating to like who are the people like vulnerable to both heat stress and COVID-19, and also like how to do public outreach on heat waves during COVID-19 pandemic, because I think one of the key actions that we normally do in terms of heat wave is public outreach, awareness. I think those things we then like need to see how better we can do that during this pandemic. And also like whether these outdoor public spaces are safe or not. So there is a lot of information around that and how we can make those places safe. And also like the cooling centers, how can we operate these cooling centers during this COVID-19 pandemic. Also like the partners that we need to collaborate in order to deal with this both risks of heat wave and COVID-19, and also yes, what are the considerations we particularly need to now take in order to respond or like prepare for heat wave in informal settlements, particularly when there is a kind of COVID pandemic, 19 pandemic going on. And also, I think, as I already mentioned, use of PPA, I think, is one of the fundamental thing, mandatory, particularly for the frontline worker. We also need to see how we need to better reduce heat stress, because if wearing PPE for a prolonged time and working in not well ventilated rooms, I think they automatically puts these health workers, these frontline workers into the risks of heat to stress. So this is also one of the crucial thing we need to see, and this is something you could find in this checklist information also. And also, yeah, overall how we can protect the staff and volunteers from heat-related illness during this COVID-19 pandemic. So I would like request all the national societies to have a look at it. These resources, I think these resources are really important in order to prepare ourselves to prepare and respond for this heat wave during this pandemic. So with that, I'll stop here. Thank you so much. Over to you, Jerome.
Thank you, Mahab. Sorry, can you off your microphone? We are a little bit late in the schedule, but it doesn't matter. We will still try to answer some of the questions. Actually, looking at the chat box, I saw that some questions already have been answered by Salome. Thank you, Salome. He was referring to the how to access different documents, and you already provide the link. So thank you for being so proactive in answering. I would like to see if it's possible, Catalina, the question we receive on menti.com.
Yes, I am sharing. Sorry that my computer is it's a bit slow today to share the slides, but here it is. So we have a couple of questions and comments as well here in the Mentimeter. And we have more questions coming through. So if you have more questions, please just let us know. Jerome.
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the most interesting one is when this COVID-19 will end. I think that none of us have the answer. But...
Yeah, I don't think I'm not going to put a presenter on the spot for an answer for this one. But thank you. I think we have a lot of questions related to where to get those material, because Marhab, you spoke about guidance, as well as you, Salome, you spoke about EIC material. So maybe Marhab and Salome, where can we get those material? Can you give us the link now or later? It will be a first starting point. I see as well a question. Actually, a national society asked me before. For the first aid related to heat stroke, we have been told that we need to immerse the person in cold water or cool water. But I know there are a lot of people who have some reluctance to do that because they are scared that in reaction to the cold water, the person will react badly and maybe his heart will stop. So that's another question I would like to ask. So maybe we go to Salome first, and then we will go to Mahab.
Yes, sure. Thank you. So thank you, Jerome. So related the material, it has been shared in the chat. So we have our general website, globalfirstaidcenter.org. And then I shared the pages related to hyperthermia with all the science behind it and the what to do. And we have our game and video that I've shared also. And it will be added in the key points of the presentation report that you will all receive. So if nobody has seen or the link in the chat, I can reshare again with pleasure. Now, when it comes to, I mean, it's a very good question, always asked by the learners. So this is something that has to be done for severe and mild. I mean, the key action is rapidly cool the person with any methods available there, and there is no risk, because the risk is the heat that the person get bad because of this, the heat of the body. The time is important there. We generally advise 15 minutes for cooling down with water or fluids between 1 and 26 degrees Celsius. But if it has to be more, then it will be more, depending on how the person conditions improve. So maybe Pascal, you want to add any studies or any facts on this?
Yeah, it was a very good question for sure. It's very clear that the most important is to cool the person and to decrease the temperature under 39, 38, 39 degrees Celsius. After we have to monitor the person for sure. If the temperature is under 38, 39, you can stop to immerse the person in a cold or ice water. And concerning, of course, person who are vulnerable as the elderly and the babies, it's necessary to monitor more, because if the decreasing of the temperature is very quick, we can have some seizure. Of course, in case of seizure or in case of loss of consciousness, you have to go out of the bath if you are in a cold bath. That's the most important. So for sure, it's very important to decrease the temperature very quickly with all the possibilities. First, the bath or other possibilities, and second, to monitor the temperature as constantly to see if it's not too cold, and stop the cooling after 38 degrees.
Thank you. There is another question. I don't know if it's for you, Salome and Pascal, or for Mana, but I think it's a bit for both. How is heat stress different from heat exhaustion and heat stroke? So I think we really understand the difference between heat exhaustion and heat stroke, but what is heat stress? And is it really a definition, like a global thing? Explain a little bit what do we mean by that? I don't know, maybe who want to start, Salome or Manhab? Yeah.
Maybe I can quickly respond to that. Yes, I think when you talk about heat stress or the heat exhaustions, I think it's just a starting condition. So like when people start to feel a bit dizzy, kind of thing, I think there are some symptoms. But when you talk about heat stroke is a bit chronic condition. So it could be a bit deadly. So that's, I think, is a basic difference between the heat exhaustion and the heat stroke. So.
Yes, Salome, you want to add or no?
It's very clear. It's very clear. Absolutely right for the heat stress. It's also necessary to take into account the heat stress can be possible in different environments, as the workplace, a very hot workplace, for example, or and that's the heat stress. We can say it's we have to act before we are going to the heat stroke, for sure. So that's very important, and especially when you are making sport also. You have a heat stress, and it's necessary to be very careful when you are making sport in a very hot environment, because we see especially for non-professional sports, man or woman, some heat stress, it's exhaustion, or sometimes heat stress and heat stroke happen. So be aware about the environment, because the stress is coming from the environment.
And thank you. That's a good question, actually. Just a last thing to stress on the fact that if you're designing prevention programs or education or whatever, to stress the difference between those three terms, because in French, for example, in our languages, the words are totally different, and some words can be the same for heat stroke or heat exhaustion. So, I mean, we have plenty of languages here in this audience. So please, in education program, do not forget to define that. Thank you for this question.
I think we will have to stop here with the question, because we run a bit late of time. But there is a comment that, I mean, all the comments are very interesting. There is one I really like, is that considering that heat stroke and heat exhaustion are the result of heat wave, is it not more commonly understandable to use those words, heat stroke, heat exhaustion, rather than to speak about heat wave? So I think it's very interesting, because here it points out something. Heat wave is about impact, and maybe it's more actually advisable. I don't know. I don't have the answer, but to speak about heat exhaustion or heat stroke rather than to speak about heat wave, because heat wave is still the meteorological aspect of it. I mean, I don't have the answer, but I think this comment is quite interesting. Thank you. I think we should give a big clap to all our colleagues from the Global Reference Center and MADHAB as well. So big clap to all of them. Thank you so much. And we still are online, please, and we can still liaise with you for more questions. What we would like to do now is to ask ourselves questions to the audience related to the heat and health. We would like to know more about what you are doing already. So again, we will use our mobile phone. And again, we will come back to menti.com. And using the code 66556694. First, we would like to know, has your National Society organization already developed awareness material or key messages on the impact of heat wave on vulnerable population? So please do answer. We'll give you a little bit of time. Is to give you a bit of perspective about how ready you are for dealing with heat wave. And it's fine if you don't know. It's not, it's not an assessment. It's just a bit of a feeling where we stand. So we can see quite a lot of national society or organization already have some kind of EIC material. It will be good to share. But as well, equally, 4 don't and 2 don't know. So it's like 1/3 don't really have yet any material. So it's a good point. Maybe we can go to the next question. Yes, slowly. Thank you. Has your national society or organization adapted the first aid guides and also training to the impact of heat wave on health? So we have heard from Salome and Pascal about first aid, but is your national society already able to adapt those guidelines and to train accordingly? Yeah, here is more share. We have a yes 33 and we have a no and don't know. Hey, yeah, 4. So that is an indication already. Don't know is climbing up. We give you 20 more seconds for this question. Please do answer if you can. Well, I think it's a very good information for us, IFRC, as well for our colleague in Paris, because, well, I think it's something we need to know, and we need to really support you to adapt your first set guideline if possible. Maybe we go to the next question, or maybe it was the last. I'm confused. Catalina, do we have more questions? It is the last.
This is the last one from the health section, yeah.
Thank you very much. So what we propose now is to have a 2 to 3 minute break. I think 3 minutes because we are a bit late. And while we are having a break, we will play a video looking at first aid, heat stroke, and heat exhaustion. Thank you. And thank you again for our presenter. It was amazing. Thank you so much. So we have 3 minutes of break. And during the break, we can watch a video. And after that, we will follow up with the session on livelihood. Thank you. Over.
Perfect.
There is no sound, Catalina.
Sorry?
There is no sound. The video
There's
is
no
without sound. Yes.
Sorry, let me just. Oh, because I thought it was.
Yeah, I think you need to share your computer sound, I guess.
Check. Sorry, let me just check. Got it. Okay, sorry. I will play it again.
Great.
Can you hear now?
Yeah, thanks.
Perfect, thanks.
Recognize the signs of heat illness and provide first aid. Heat can further aggravate chronic lung conditions, heart conditions, kidney disorders, and mental illness, causing increased risk. In addition, there are some specific heat-related illnesses. Trained volunteers and healthcare workers can give immediate first aid treatment. For instance, some of the typical heat-related illnesses and immediate first aid are heat exhaustion. The critical symptoms are getting faint or dizziness, excessive sweating, cool, pale and clammy skin, rapid weak pulse, muscle cramps. What are the causes? Dehydration and/or sodium depletion are the main causes for heat exhaustion. Immediate first aid. Get to a cooler place. Drink water if fully conscious. Take a cool shower or use cold compresses. Heat stroke is one of the common heat-related illnesses. The critical symptoms of heat stroke are throbbing headache, signs of confusion, high body temperature, red hot and dry skin, rapid strong pulse, possible loss of consciousness. Heat stroke happens when body's temperature control system fails. It can be caused by heat exposure or physical exertion. Heat stroke is a serious, life-threatening condition. Immediate first aid. Call for emergency help and take action to cool the person until help arrives. Another heat-related illness is heat edema, and the common symptoms are swelling of hands or ankles or feet. What are the causes for heat edema? Heat causes a widening of blood vessels and blood pools in the extremities. Immediate first aid. Move to a cooler place. Elevate swollen extremities. In case of any further signs of health complications due to extreme heat, don't hesitate to seek medical advice and respect the advice given. By keeping these signs in mind, you can recognize the signs of heat illness and take appropriate actions.
I hope everybody had a nice break, and we will also, for your information, post all of the video materials as well as all of the presentations will be sent to you. We'll post the video materials on the hub. And thanks to all the colleagues, there are also many helpful email addresses here in terms of how you can reach the presenters, and even offers already to adapt existing information and offer you technical support. So now moving within the same vein, our colleague Salome, she mentioned investigating people-centered approaches and consequences, and this is a good segue to discussing livelihoods. So I would like to call upon my colleague Subendu Pratihari, the IFRC APRO Regional Coordinator for Livelihood, who will be giving a presentation on the impacts of heat waves on livelihoods in the Asia Pacific. I'm just a terrible multitasker. First we will...
I have the questions for Subendu first.
Perfect.
Before we start the PowerPoint.
Right. So first, before we get started with Subendu's PowerPoints, whose livelihoods do you think are most affected by heat waves in Asia Pacific? Rural dwellers or urban dwellers? Close tie here. Okay. Tight race, tight race.
Urban winning now.
Urban is in the lead.
Yeah, I think definitely, well, Urban has a bit of difference over rural. Yeah.
Okay. Subendu can answer in his presentation shortly. As usual, please feel free to plug in your questions into the Mentimeter during Subendu's presentation, as well as write them in the chat box here.
And we have a couple more just before we start.
Right, so it would also be great to know how your national society or organization is working on heat waves and livelihoods. What you're currently up to. Awareness campaigns, great. None? Not specifically. Maybe today is the start. None in terms of livelihood. Yeah. Anticipatory action on heat waves, not directly. It would be great, actually. I know this is coming a bit late, but it would be great if you can write your national society or organization along with your answers so that we can also link you up and connect you to support, for example, those that are already working on addressing heat waves and livelihoods. To the Menti participants who wrote awareness campaigns, anticipatory action on heat waves. Perhaps we'll hear more on this tomorrow. Thanks. Australian Red Cross, telephone outreach support. Lovely.
Perfect.
Okay.
That is interesting results. Okay.
Yeah. A lot of programming, but not integrated.
Okay, I'm gonna go to the last one. Oh, maybe we can just keep this last one related to cash. Yes, Lucy, go ahead. Sorry.
This last one is a pertinent one, a good segue. Cash distribution to job migrants who live in slums for medicine and electricity and water bills. Great, thanks for sharing. And please do share your national society along with your answers moving forward. These are all excellent.
I will share just the last question to give the floor to Subendu, and it's just to tease our participants. Oh no, sorry. No, this one is the last one. I thought we had one more, but I was confused. Sorry. Here is to ask all the questions for the next presentation.
Right. As usual, the Menti is here to pool all of your questions if you can't write them in the chat. And without much further ado, Subendu, welcome. Thanks for joining us today. I hope you can see the presentation. Okay, excellent.
Okay, thanks a lot, Lucy, Catalina, and Jerome. Good afternoon, good morning. Indeed, before I start my presentation, I must tell that I am not a technical person, and I can see that there has been a lot of technical presentation already been done, as well as I can see that there are many experts, academia and technical experts are there in the audience. So pardon me if I'm not too technical, and this is indeed a learning phase for me, because this is also for the first time I'm sitting for heat waves and impact on livelihood. So with this, I'll start my presentation. So as Lucy already introduced me, okay. We have in context of Asia Pacific, you have different climatic and as well as livelihood zone. So if we come to climate or climatic zone, we have from arid to semi-arid to tropical, subtropical. Within tropical and subtropical, you have humid, dry to dry. And you have different livelihood zones, in fact. Starting from East Asia and Pacific, we have agriculture, pastoralism, fishery, and urban farming, which are basically the livelihood zone. South Asia, you have agriculture, fishing, and urban farming. Southeast Asia, specifically Mekong River lower basin, where we can see agriculture and fishing are the different livelihood zones. So coming back to this is a continuation of the context where climate variability. So what we have seen is heat waves impact on livelihood. If there is an increase in temperature by 1 or few degrees, that leads to loss of crop productivity, reduced fish gas, livestock morbidity, disruption of market, loss of human productivity. So this occurs when there is a climate change variability, and which includes increase in heat waves or increase of temperature by 1 or few degrees. So who are most affected? This is again in the context of impact on livelihood. So women-headed household, small farming household, fisher folk, informal sector house worker in urban areas. So these are basically the most affected communities due to heat waves. Next slide, please. So the context continued. Heat waves in India and livelihood. A study reported that India lost 75 billion hours due to heat waves in 2017, and out of which 60 billion hours are from agricultural sector. And again, in Vietnam, a study of Vietnam Red Cross Society as well as German Red Cross in 2019, in 12 urban districts and 1687 wards prone to heat waves revealed that slum dwellers and outdoor workers were affected most. Similarly, in Bangladesh, there is already experiencing heat waves and increasing summer ahead. So this doesn't mean that most of the many countries in South Asia, Southeast Asia, Pacific, most of the countries are facing, but I've just given an example of 3 countries. So in Asia Pacific region, we have more than 68% workers are in informal sector, and majority are in agriculture, and which is again in outdoor and cannot escape heat waves. So what is the impact and cost? So if you see the human cost, loss of life and productivity, social psychological cost is basically when you talk about migration, displacement, poor living conditions, stress, and economic cost, low GDP of an economy, increasing poverty, vulnerability of urban informal sector workers, reduced income of smallholder due to disruption in the livelihood sources. Next slide, please. So, yeah. So these are within the livelihood aspect and heat waves impact. All of you must be knowing a livelihood model which was developed by DFID in 1990, which talks about 5 livelihood aspects, capital, starting with human capital. So when you talk about human capital, we think about skill on different technical skills like motor repair, mechanical, marketing, crop management, cultivation. So when there is a heat wave, it negatively impacts the productivity and income. Coming to the next capital is social capital, which talks about family, kinship, clan, social group, network. This helps in your sustainable livelihood. But heat waves lead to migration, displacement, and leading to poor social network. So when there is a poor social network, that affects the sustainable livelihood of those communities. Natural capital is land, water bodies, tree, grazing land, fisheries, dairy, and overall impact is low productivity. So in many countries across, in Asia, Southeast Asia, you find grazing land, fisheries, and water bodies. So heat waves, in fact, affect the productivity negatively. So maybe the presentation seems that more towards rural, but because more than 60 to 70% people who are working in South Asia Pacific are basically with the agriculture and rural sector. So I have well focus on rural sector. So the next capital or livelihood asset is financial capital. So it is basically income saving loan given to other remittance. So again, heat waves impact, negative impact on low income, low saving, and further economic stuff. The final capital or livelihood asset is physical capital. So it talks about different, infrastructure. So there is because of inadequate economic GDP, lack of economic growth, you have also inadequate infrastructure development, and specifically that leads to livestock, low base of livestock, seed, agricultural tools, other equipment which support the people to generate livelihood and income. Next slide, please. So this is basically what should be done and durable solution model, which I'll try to explain what is done. So from the left-hand side of the slide, there is a green arrow, vertical arrow, which talks about community capacity, and there are two horizontal arrow. One is red, which is critical level, and the black one is threshold level. So most of the communities which I just now presented are basically mostly they are poor. Either it is in urban informal sector worker or agriculturist, smallholders, fisher folk. So they are already at the threshold level, and if there is a negative impact of heat waves, that put them into the critical level. So there, what is the recommendation which we would like to give is basically working on safe job standard, PPE training. So when PPE means personal protective equipment, that perhaps this we may think that I'm talking about health worker, but no. Like in urban area, we have a lot of women construction worker or construction worker. They don't have basic PPE to work on. So when there is a heat waves or stress level increases, they don't have, they are most prone to accident. So safe job standard, PPE training are something which will help bringing back the community to the normal life. The next is infrastructure development. Third is alternative livelihood sources. Because of displacement, a lot of migration takes place during heat waves. So there must be alternative livelihood sources so that the displaced people can be occupied. Then skilling for livelihood and vocational training. These are something which can be done to those who have lost their income or livelihood sources because of negative impact of heat waves. So what happens to the next? When you do this, people, those vulnerable people, they come back. They have improved resilience. And if there is another fall, another negative impact of heat waves, they fall, but the fall is less. And when again there is a supplemental support, social protection system by either government or private sector and other organizations, so there will be the community resilience is improved and there is a reduced negative impact. So finally, the people are above threshold. Thanks. Next slide, please. So what should be done to stabilize and durable solutions? So this is basically unpacking the model where we call capacity building and influencing. So there will be awareness building and knowledge development through sharing of information on heat waves and impacts. So there has been many of national societies are doing on this, and many organizations are also doing this specifically on awareness building. So when awareness building here talks about awareness building of heat wave impact to perhaps urban informal sector worker, agriculturists, smallholders, Fisher Park, all those things. And the second step is risk assessment. So heat waves risk assessment, make it more regular, expand the scope to rural also. Now we are doing a lot of urban hazard, and we have been doing, there has been instances that we are doing this assessment, and there is dissemination going on in the urban area, but we have to also expand to rural area. Training and capacity building inputs and risk management. So safe work standard, avoid being exposed to health risk, heat stroke, energy exhaustion, climate smart practices, improved agriculture, livestock management. These are something which we can think of about training and capacity building. And to whom, of course, in urban area, we call vegetable vendor, auto repair mechanic, car driver, construction worker, and many other. In rural area also, smallholders, especially agriculturalists, livestock people, pastoralists. Community-based disaster preparedness, which is basically the fourth line of intervention, where we can talk about contingency plan to face heat waves negative impact on livelihood. And the next activity is influencing through advocacy to government for labor standard, safe job, use of PPE, contingency fund creation to respond any emergency situation. Next slide. Thanks. So again, the last slide on the what should be done within durable solution is basically stabilization and recovery. So these are some interventions like when there is an emergency, when there is a distressed population. So the immediate need is to stabilize them through food security intervention, and that And the second is intervention is infrastructure development, basically shelter, transit house for urban construction workers. And you have seen that in many countries there is pastoralist. They, because of heat waves impact, they moved here and there. So there must be some transit house for them. Social protection and safety net creation. So this is something through cash transfer mechanism, like for women construction worker and informal sector worker can be protected through supplement, specifically social protection mechanism, social safety net creation through maybe regular cash transfer program, specifically during the time of emergency. And the last intervention is skill development training for displaced workers so that they restart their livelihood. So in many cases, when a person is displaced, they lose their livelihood asset, and they need some skill to restart their livelihood. It can be livelihood diversification. Next slide, please. So what is IFRC doing on heat waves and livelihood? Just to clearly say that we have not started integration of livelihood programming to respond heat waves impacted communities. But yes, of course, we work in more than 30, we work in 38 countries across East Asia, Southeast Asia, South Asia, and Pacific. In 2020, IFRC responded to more than 26 new climate crises across Asia Pacific. And of course, IFRC Strategy 2030, Strategic Priority 1 focuses on responding to climate and environmental crises. And around 10 to 12 countries, we are working on livelihood programming to address climate and economic vulnerability. Countries like Myanmar, Indonesia, Philippines, Bangladesh, Vietnam, Laos, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Mongolia, and many other countries, we have started livelihood programming. Next slide. So these are basically the livelihood program map of IFRC and National Society of Asia Pacific. So like in many countries, we have started the Women Economic Empowerment Program. We have COVID response program. A lot of cash transfer programming is going on. Then a drought long-term recovery program is being started in Afghanistan. Women Economic Empowerment Program in Bangladesh, as well as flood response program. There is a community-based resilience program in Myanmar. Then there is a small grant project in Mongolia. So there are many interventions are being taken up within livelihood program in across Asia Pacific region. Next slide, please. So way ahead, heat waves and livelihood program. So before I start presenting on this, I just again want to specify that as far as IFRC is concerned, we are yet to respond or integrate our livelihood programming with the communities impacted by heat waves. But yes, of course, as we have been now doing this course, and definitely we'll try to see that how best we can integrate our livelihood programming. So way ahead. first action is innovation, demonstration, and pilot, and of course scale up. So as for livelihood zone, what we can do is basically, like in Afghanistan, we were recently talking about index-based insurance for drought-affected farmers. This is something which we have not started, but we are still trying to understand the thing and trying to see that if we can do that. So if we do this index-based insurance, this is basically called risk transfer, and we can cover the farmers, small farmers, those who are being affected by heat waves and drought, yeah, so that they can restart their livelihood. Then livestock insurance in Pakistan is something which you can see. Then microfinance, specifically called prudent risk-taking project in Bangladesh, is something which we can explore. And the second program component can be advocacy and influencing, where we can talk about advocacy and influencing government for labor standards, safe job, skill development program through private sector, social protection of migrant and informal sector workers. And the third component is capacity building inputs, where training and awareness raising program can be undertaken. Next slide, please. Okay, sorry, I'm through with the slide, and maybe we can go to the question answering, or yeah. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Subhendu, for the comprehensive overview and presentation, and so many tips in terms of what we can do. I really liked your action-packed graphic as well, and it also speaks to the importance of anticipatory actions, which link to early actions for livelihood. So we have some more questions here. So how to take into consideration, what recommendations do you have in terms of how we should approach this link between heat waves and livelihood in rural settings?
Yeah, so that's what actually when heat waves impact is basically, we have been talking about urban area, but in my presentation I also considered rural areas. Specifically, I gave example of Afghanistan, where heat waves specifically has led to drought, and how we are trying to respond to the drought affected people or communities by introducing a lot of livelihood recovery programming. Similarly, in many areas, we have seen that heat waves has affected rural communities, especially livestock keeper and etc. So once we do some assessment, which I also recommend that we do regular assessment, and if we see that there is the impact of heat waves on rural settings, specifically agriculturist and livestock keeper, then indeed we should start responding to them. And this, I mean, that means whatever programming we are doing, we will try to integrate that programming, keeping in mind the heat waves impact. Like as I said, social protection mechanism, livelihood diversification, and yeah. So the second question, should I go to the second question? Lucy, should I go to the second question?
Sure.
Okay. Does IFRC or the Livelihood Reference Center have guides to integrate heat waves preparedness into livelihood? Very good question. Yeah. So indeed, this as this is the first webinar specifically for me also in Asia Pacific, and indeed I was also talking to livelihood research centers on this also, and there are, I mean, they are also trying to develop couple of guidelines, but nothing is very clear yet. But sure, we'll be working more on this, and this is basically the need of hour now, considering the context of heat waves and its negative impact on livelihood. Last question is, as frequency and intensity of heat waves is on rise, how to adjust labor-intensive livelihood under such conditions? It's a very good question. Yes. So in one of the slides, I talked about skill development. So it can be like I said about construction worker in urban area. So we have seen that in many cities, many countries, in many cities, urban construction workers, especially women construction workers, are sometimes mostly non-skilled or semi-skilled. So they need to know mechanization. So maybe for us, if we train them on how to use mechanization or tools, equipment, which are basically mechanical tools and etc. So that will reduce their time or labor. This will be more. I mean, they will be engaged, but it will be not too much labor intensive. So there are many examples where we give them training, improved, for example, improved agricultural practices, climate smart agriculture, or things like that. That will really reduce the labor intensive rather than it will be qualitative. On social protection, one possible opportunity is the country's calamity fund to support those affected by a disaster. Unfortunately, some Disaster Management Act, Heatwaves is not considered a disaster. Is there any other example of protection scheme used? Indeed, very relevant question. So that is what I mean. I am also at the very exploration stage, and that is what my recommendation was to start social protection mechanism. There are many countries, they have started social protection, social safety net or social protection mechanism, where a lot of cash transfer program is being undertaken. But indeed, perhaps the Disaster Management Act doesn't specify heatwaves as disaster, but irrespective of the fact, we can start as a pilot in some countries. Pardon me if somebody can give me more information about this, whether heatwaves is already regarded as a disaster or considered as a disaster in some countries. But even though it is not considered, but we can always start some piloting. And once it is pilot, then we can influence the government. The last question is, are there any critical issues for Nepal as well? So maybe I will request other colleagues to help me in this question. Indeed, in Nepal, a couple of years back, in 2008, with Tribhuvan University, there has been some study of urban informal sector worker and livelihood. And though heatwaves was not found to be a problem that time, but yes, there has been a lot of issue about how urban informal sector workers are not getting a job, regular job, and etc. So maybe we can explore more on that, and let's see what we can do there also. How can we better link data forecasting, driver and neutral, extreme dry, time, heat wave information? How can we better link data? Okay, so here I can give an example. I can't answer this, but recently in some countries where we have been using index-based insurancy by satellite, real-time information from satellite. So perhaps this is we can do there. Like real-time information can be received from satellite. We can have partnership with some universities who use this, and indeed we can talk about preparedness accordingly, like drought, heat waves. This we can get the data from satellite, and based on that, the preparedness can be there. Okay, Lucy, I don't think that there is more questions, so maybe I don't know whether I answered, but.
So many good questions to address here. We promised to pool them all. I would also say a second component of that in the Philippines, urban anticipatory actions are a good example of linking forecasting to livelihood early actions. And so that was based on mapping together jointly with the Department of Trade and Industry, and then targeting urban vendors and linking that to livelihood programming actions. So another question was about the impacts out of the, I think, five indicated impacts. Maybe this was referring to your 5 characteristics, 5 capitals, which is
Okay, which impact out of 5 indicated on the slides were the most relevant to the RC activities among Asia national society? So for me, I see that natural capital, then you have finance capital. Hold on, please. Please hold on. Let me also see the slide which I got. Human capital, social capital, natural capital, physical. I mean, for me, I believe all the capitals are in fact relevant now, and maybe there is a variability of impact, but all the capital or livelihood assets relevance is there across Asia Pacific or Asian countries. So maybe there will be variability of impact. But in some countries, maybe urban area, you are talking about infrastructure, physical capital as well as human capital. But in some rural context, you have natural capital and, of course, again human capital.
And of course, these are both interrelated. So it's important that we continue to implement systems thinking throughout all of our approaches. And these interrelationships are also something that I will be addressing now in the next presentation. So I will share, unless Catalina, do we have a last Mentimeter question?
No, Lucy.
Rudra, there is a hand raised by Rudra Adhikari.
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you
Sorry,
so
I
much
missed
for
you.
this. Lucy, thank you so much for this opportunity. First, I am sorry because I was in the hospital for the treatments of some family members suspended as a COVID, and then just I am here and joining this meeting.
Well, sorry to hear. Hope your
No
family's
problems. Yeah, just I want to highlight about the urban hot waves, heat waves initiatives in Nepal, and what is the status and what Nepal Red Cross Society is doing with the authorities from the governments. Actually, yes, Subhendu, he already explains very briefly that in past times the Tribhuvan University together with some consultant did the some assessment to know about the what heat waves impacts in Nepal, but at that time they did not find any impacts of heat wave in the Nepal. But at the moment from last 2 years, Nepal Red Cross Society, actually together with the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Authority, we did some assessment in the Trai area, and so many impacts are already there. Last 2 years, many of the people had a death due to the heat waves, and peoples are losing their livelihoods, and peoples from the concerned area are migrated to the other area, so that the heat waves force the migration and internally displace as well. That is the one condition, and every year it is happening especially in the Tarai area. And last year we did the one assessment from the Nepal Red Cross Society and National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Authority. They had the technical support together with the Red Cross, and we found that actually the 23 districts of Tarai area are affected by the heat waves. And then you already mentioned in the question sheets that actually disaster risk reduction and management authorities, act that is endorsed by the government of Nepal in 2018. That is not highlighted the heat waves related hazards and then the process of government, but actually from the local governments they have developed and endorsed some guidelines and tools on how to work with into the heat wave, so that such types of initiatives are happening in the Tarai area. Actually, from the Nepal Red Cross Society, we are supporting to the community to start their livelihoods, to transfer their livelihoods from one area to another as well. And then we are providing some skill-based training, and then some migrated peoples who are migrated from the Tarai area, heatwave area to another area. We are providing skill-based and vocational training to continue their livelihoods as well. These are the initiatives in Nepal. And last month we had a big discussion with the Tribhuvan University to carry out the details assessment. Actually, what is the impacts of the heat waves especially in the Tarai area of Nepal, and such types of initiatives are happening. This is the just very short information to you. I will take part in the discussion ahead. Thank you so much. Over to you.
Thank you, Rudra. Ask and you shall receive. Critical issues in Nepal met with critical impact. Thank you for all of these examples. So important. And these also feed in well to the presentation, which I will share with you shortly.
Lucy, just before you share your screen, and just to give the word to you for the presentation in urban, I just want to remind the participants to use also Mentimeter and the chat box if you want to ask any questions related to heat waves in urban context. So,
Thanks,
all yours.
And again, thank you so much, Subendu, for the presentation. All right. Hope you can all see my screen.
Yeah,
Yes,
it is
we can.
visible. We can see.
Okay. All right. So, as many colleagues earlier before have also discussed.
It is in a black screen with the notes.
You are not in the presentation mode. You have to.
Yeah, that one I think. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, good.
Okay. I wonder if you can still.
Now, now we can. Now we see it. It's very small. Do you want me to share it?
I'm just trying to figure out. Yeah, maybe if you could share, that would be appreciated, so I don't miss out any facts. That would be good.
No problem.
Thank you. And thanks for your patience, everyone. Okay.
Sorry, I think I shared the wrong one. Or
Perfect. All right. Thanks. So, as we see here, we're speaking today about many cross-cutting issues, and understanding how heat waves in the urban context relate to one another is especially critical, a critical issue, which is underscoring our Red Cross, Red Crescent work. So especially in Asia Pacific, where we are a primarily urban region and the world's most disaster prone. So heat waves are still an emerging research topic, and there's still quite a few gaps which remain in terms of how heat waves are affecting cities. However, from this UCCRN Impact 2050 report, we can see currently about 200 million people in cities are living under extreme heat conditions. And over 26 million people are living in extreme poverty. Over 239 cities experience these temperature extremes. So we discussed today that heat waves are defined differently. Here in this study, they're taking this 3-month period of consecutive heat temperatures exceeding 35 degrees Celsius or 95 degrees Fahrenheit. And by 2050, according to research, the number of people living in cities regularly exposed to heat waves will increase by 700%. So we already discussed who's most vulnerable to heat, and all of my colleagues before have also touched upon how, the target groups for urban areas remain the same. Just as heat waves act as amplifiers to existing vulnerabilities, urban environments also amplify heat wave risk differently. So out of 2.3 billion current urban dwellers in Asia Pacific, over 500 million people are living in slums. Rapid urban growth poses a major challenge for governments to keep pace with. High rates of poverty, accelerated urbanization, and already existing high heat conditions make those living in Asia Pacific highly vulnerable to the impact of heat waves. And so we're looking at working and living conditions in many cities in this region, which are particularly hazardous in high heat conditions, as Subendu already introduced. So this is of particular concern for migrants and day laborers, often who reside in urban areas lacking access to health care, and where food prices can be higher and more volatile. Women in urban areas may also have poor access to healthcare and cooling facilities due to personal safety concerns and a lack of access to safe transportation. Meanwhile, extreme heat can interact with and compound with other stressors in urban environments, such as air pollution, with impacts on fetal and maternal health. So lastly, 1 in 4 people in the Asia Pacific will be 60 by 2050. So we've got a rapidly aging population in the Asia Pacific, which excludes many elderly from urban amenities. So this is especially in populations in India, China, and Japan, the elderly will be particularly vulnerable. Next slide, please. So when we look at heat waves in the urban context, I'm sure you are all familiar with the term urban heat island, but let's unpack that a bit. So heat waves are more pronounced in urban areas than in rural areas due to the urban heat island phenomenon. So cities tend to be hotter than in rural areas, as you can infer. And this is known as the heat island effect because cities are trapping and storing heat and releasing it slowly. So for example, the mean annual air temperature in Bangkok is higher by 0.8 degrees Celsius than rural areas outside of the city. So during the day in rural areas, solar energy is absorbed near the ground, evaporates water from the vegetation and soil, which has a cooling effect on the air. And this process is known as evapotranspiration. So this is what makes it feel cool. And in cities, many factors contribute and create urban hotspots. So this has to do with the way we are planning and constructing our cities, buildings that block wind, or the use of certain materials, sealed surfaces, which you can see in the graphic on the right, which shows the albedo effect. Certain surfaces are trapping and storing heat rather than releasing and reflecting it back into the atmosphere, like as the case is with lighter surfaces, green coverage. So urban area size can also impact heat island intensity. There was a study looking at 8 Asian megacities from Beijing to Dhaka, Karachi, Manila, Mumbai, Seoul, Tokyo, etc. And for over a decade, they saw that there was a direct relationship between urban heat island intensity, and although it varied between cities and seasons, overall it increased as urban area size increased. And beyond urban area size, lots of factors contribute to urban heat islands. So these include population density, heat release from industry, transport, a lack of green and blue spaces, landscape structures, and general climate classification, so where your city is located. Next slide, please. So the complexity and interconnectedness of city systems, as also Subendu touched upon, when we're thinking about systems thinking, in cities, this complexity presents both opportunities and challenges to urban heat action for humanitarians. So I'm sure those of you who have attended Urban Hub webinars have already heard about the 3 Ds, but this is a very easy way to classify the urban context. So we're talking about density, diversity, and dynamism, essentially. And each of these present double-edged swords, basically, for humanitarian work. So for example, in urban areas, we've got a higher proportion of built up area within defined administrative boundaries. Density means a concentration of services, though, so people have higher quality public health services, better access, more improved access maybe to early warning information versus rural areas. Humanitarians can also have a quicker and larger impact in one area. As we spoke about earlier, the density can make urban areas hotter. And these areas, as also our colleagues from Climate Center and Health discussed, these can be pockets of quick transmission, and either this can be of disease or even information. So you could have very rapid, effective awareness campaigns, or conversely, the quick transmission of misinformation. And also density can make or break access. So just the sheer population of cities and density can make those most vulnerable, the poor, the marginalized, the undocumented, invisible, difficult to find and target and support. In terms of diversity, we're talking about diverse livelihood opportunities, but this diversity also affects community identification. So for humanitarians, when we're approaching the urban context and thinking about heat waves, as we'll hear also many examples of tomorrow from our national societies, essentially, it can be a bit trickier because communities in urban contexts are not uniformly located. Rather, they're spread out and dispersed, and communities don't have to be geographically defined. They can be communities of interest, of faith, of culture. So this means that also within areas, we can have communities with many overlapping vulnerabilities and different vulnerabilities. This also means that we're dealing with a very wide, diverse palette of informal and formal stakeholders, which are molding, shaping the urban fabric. So this means there are multiple layers of systems and power structures that we're encountering. And lastly, cities, as Subendu and also as Rudra, a colleague from Nepal, was also connoting, urban areas are constantly in flux, and rural and urban areas share populations, and we're seeing this increase more with seasonal migration as a product of climate change and also extreme weather like heat waves. So last but not least, cities they're made of interrelated systems, and the failure of one system can have an exponential negative effect, cascade effect on others. So especially lifeline services like the loss of electricity during a heat wave. And disruptions of these systems have a much greater impact on poor communities and cities, affecting both their health and livelihood. And the compounding factors like climate change add to cities' vulnerabilities, not only to heat waves, but also disease, failures in food and water security, loss of livelihoods. So we're going to see, next slide, please. We're going to see and hear from many national societies with good practices. Just very quickly, when we're thinking about the urban context, and there were also some questions about urban preparedness, taking the urban context into consideration, these would be the top 4 urban actions that national societies and city stakeholders can take to really prepare for the urban context. So I think across the board, we're hearing from national societies that you have to allocate proper time to really assess the urban context. And this time it takes time to collect qualitative and qualitative data to map. And mapping for heat waves, impact-based forecasting, for example, mapping is your friend. Mapping urban risk hotspots, vulnerable groups, access, places you can potentially pre-position supplies, or even allocate to emergency sites like water distribution points or cooling centers is incredibly important. This kind of upstream homework is important to do, as well as mapping who's out there. and how you can collaborate. So stakeholder mapping as well as citywide systems mapping are key. And we have resources to support you with both, which I'll get to in a moment. Engaging and identifying these actions collectively would also be an obvious point, but crucial working in urban areas. So it cast a wide net and engage with many and diverse formal and informal stakeholders. Make it official. This would be something that I don't feel like I personally hear enough about, but these are really, I think, crucial. This tiny paperwork or crossing the T's, dotting the I's in terms of agreements. This can mean data sharing agreements with authorities, allocating funding to heat waves, to early actions, for example, through anticipation, establishing cooperation agreements like MOUs, linking to social protection registries, agreements with financial service providers, utility companies, even translators are going to help you to really unlock your work in urban areas quickly and at scale. And lastly, and we'll hear many more examples of this tomorrow, but it's important within the urban context to think in terms of systems, of course, but think in terms of mobility, flexibility, and accessibility. So a lot of the good practices we're going to hear in urban environments deal with pre-positioning supplies for really quick targeted support, mobile distribution and care, well-established hotlines and awareness campaigns in multiple languages, simulating and preparing with this systems thinking and also multi-hazard perspective. And all of this should, of course, link to your ongoing policies, strategies, and plans. Longer term vision in terms of climate, DRR, resilience strategies. So there are a wealth of resources available to you. You've seen the Heatwave Guide for Cities. We'll dive into that a bit more. This is developed by Red Cross Climate Center, as well as the Urban Action Kit. So this has a particular slide, particular urban action on cooling centers. And of course, the hub is here the Urban Hub is here to support together with global partners, such as the Global Heat Health International Network here with us today. And this regional meeting represents one of many exploring and exchanging on the topic of heat waves. And of course, we're going to then learn from so many good practices. Oh, sorry, I realized the slide we can move to the next slide. Yes, here's the Heatwave Guide for Cities and the Urban Action Kit. Wonderful. Thanks, Catalina. And last but not least, we're going to, please continue to the next slide. It would be great to hear from you in terms of how your organization is tackling urban heat in the Asia Pacific. So maybe go back one more slide, Catalina. Thanks. Perfect. So we invite you to also revisit Mentimeter, and Catalina will share that so that we can also hear a bit more in terms of what your national society or what your organization is doing to address heat waves in urban areas. And let us know. Yes, thanks so much. And do let us know who you're working with. Who's been an important stakeholder as this is a collective effort. Or maybe everyone is a bit mentimetered out. If that's the case, that's perfectly all right.
Lucy, sorry.
Go ahead, Rudra.
Actually, I don't have the access of this. I am trying, but I have been unable to the multi. Yeah, this Mentimeter. But yes, I have the good answers and some things I have noted here. I will share later on.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
FBF project in urban context in collaboration with local Met Office. Please do state your national society or organization next to all these activities so we know. All right. So, many answers coming in now.
Yeah, we have a couple more.
Heat prevention messaging. That's great. Social media, radio, television, working with government, working closely with local government and local communities authorities are the most important stakeholders. But in terms of heat stroke prevention, our national societies does not establish good connection between Red Cross volunteers and those organizations. Yeah, so you are in urban context, you're working with many different stakeholders and in many different ways, right? That's true. So not directly, but through the activities such as tree planting, protecting blue constructions around urban areas. That's great. We'll also hear more from colleagues tomorrow about this topic.
Great.
Perfect.
Well, I just wanted to go back a minute because we had just a couple of questions here.
Yep, sure.
Interesting questions. I don't know if you want to go ahead with them.
Yeah, gladly. Where to start working on heat waves in the urban context? Starting here, for example, is a good place to start. Starting at a regional exchange, hearing from colleagues, learning from everyone's good practices. That already provides you with a menu of solutions that you can apply as your national society. But I think that as shown also in this slide in response to the urban context, the place really to start would be in understanding the urban context. So every city is unique and it takes time to understand all of the city systems. So there's a citywide risk assessment toolkit, for example, that you can use for that, but also mapping vulnerability. You're going to be hearing from, for example, the Vietnam Red Cross, who can tell you all about their impressive work for their urban anticipation project, in which they used GIS for their impact-based forecasting mapping, as well as a range of knowledge, attitudes, practice surveys, and things like this in order to identify vulnerable groups. So the start would be starting with just understanding your city and your systems. As well as your national society's capacities, I would add to that. Any regional cooperation or initiatives to address heat wave impact? Yes, I think that I would invite Jerome Jerome, if you are still with us, I would invite you to jump in here and expand a bit about that.
So yes, I'm here. Yeah, sorry. Can you repeat the question? I was here, but I need to
eat lunch. The question's any regional cooperation and initiatives to address heat wave impact. And I know that you are heavily engaged, so.
So yes, I mean, we have for instance, we have colleagues from the GENE, the Global Heat Health International Network, who are very much involved in liaising with scientists, with practitioners at global level. And they are, I think some of them may be here already today in the room, but tomorrow they will do a presentation at the end of the workshop as part of the research and collaboration session. And actually, they collaborate already with the Climate Center on the COVID session that Madhab presented. The articles that he showed us are already on the GENE website as well. So that's a good place to look at for collaboration at a global and regional level.
Mm-hmm. That also ties into the third question. What are regional networks or platforms non-RCRC can engage with? And I would say the Urban Hub is also here to support that work. So the Urban Hub network extends beyond the RCRC movement, as well as the GIN network, correct?
Yeah, yes, I would say correct, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. The more the merrier.
Well, we have to understand we are not the only ones across to work on Heatwave. It's a global learning which is happening, for which I think we should collaborate with. And it's why we will have an external participant tomorrow, not only the Red Cross, but colleagues from the START network, universities, and the GENE will be present tomorrow to speak about collaboration and going beyond the Red Cross learning.
Excellent. And I think that the last question is another very good segue, because I think that this ties in well to presentations you will hear from our Climate Center colleagues later today, coming up around the corner, about what cities and what the movement can do, as well as tomorrow you will have many national societies sharing their good practices with you. So, and I've also been told we are a bit behind time. So moving on to early warning.
Yeah, so I will just keep this slide open for anyone to ask any questions for the next presentation.
Great, thanks.
And I think I will jump in now.
Yes,
Please do. Take it. The floor is yours, Jerome.
This is yours.
We're not quick, but still I will try to catch up a little bit. Can you see my slide? Yes, can you see my slide?
Yes.
Great. So we are going to speak now about early warning system, and I will provide some key consideration for designing early warning system for Heatwave. Earlier this morning, we spoke the definition of heat. We saw that there is no single universal definition of heat, but Heatwave is implies to have impact. We need to have impact to speak about Heatwave, basically. And those impacts are a composite effect of a number of factors beyond just temperature. So one thing which is very important is that Heatwave must be defined using thresholds that correspond to the local weather condition and to their impact locally on human health and system. And a threshold indicates the moment when the heat wave becomes extreme enough to become dangerous for the population, for the health, and for livelihood. So basically, the threshold aims to say to be dangerous. And for designing early warning system, the Climate Center proposed a methodology that I'm going to expose here. First, we need to list the factors that contribute to heat impact. So, for instance, we may like to look at the maximum temperature the day, but as well the night. We may like to look at humidity. Then we may like to consider existing heatwave definition or indices that combine those factors and choose the one which is relevant to your local context. Maybe it's not really relevant in your context to look at the night temperature, or maybe it is. It really depends where you are living. Then the next step is to pick up a threshold when the heat wave definition indicates that the heat is becoming dangerous, as I say. And to do that, there are many ways to choose this threshold. including, of course, looking at level, historical level, when we have seen a peak of death or a peak in hospital admission during a heat wave, or as well to look at judgment expert. So that it is somehow the methodology proposed, and it's a little bit of a theory, and I will explain later on how it has been done, at least in Vietnam. We can forecast heat wave. That's very good news. So in black, there's the area in the map where we have both skillful short-term forecast as well as seasonal forecast. In green, there's the area where we have only seasonal forecast, and in red, the area, the region where only skillful short-term forecast can be used. And what is in cream, basically, the area in which is not really relevant. There's no exposure, or there is no distinctive climatology or forecast skill available. As you can see, a big part of the map is covered. However, there are as well a lot of gaps still, especially in Africa, in some part of Asia as well. So yeah, we'll speak about some opportunities. So there's a huge potential to forecast heat wave, as I just showed you. And globally, almost 5 billion people living in region where somehow we can predict the season, of course, but as well the heat wave. In many parts of to predict, to make it possible to take anticipatory action and to reduce the impact of it before the heat wave is occurring. Therefore, it health early warning system with the trigger for actions in an effective early action plan could reduce heat wave impact and ensure an effective response when heat wave occurs. So basically here we look at having a heat and health threshold, then to share warning, communication, and to get into action and to evaluate the action after implementation. However, of course, there are a lot of challenges, and here I present some of the challenges. So in red, we have the places where the relationship between heat and mobility have been documented, and as you can see, is not so much places. And in blue, places where specific extreme heat episodes have been studied. Again, as you can see, the map is kind of quite empty. Most part of Asia, Africa, Latin America, there is not such of a study, meaning that the relationship between heat and the impact is not so well documented. The human impact of heat wave is notoriously very, very difficult to quantify in almost any circumstances. And Madhab spoke a little bit about that before, because it's a multi-factor aspect, so it's difficult to say if a person go to the hospital due to heat wave or if it is because of other circumstances. And the reliability of the heat-related morbidity and mortality debate. At the end of the day, most of the time, what is done is to estimate the impact by estimating the excess of mortality. That's the way usually we are doing to look at the impact of heat wave. This limitation make it difficult actually to develop impact-based threshold for early warning system, because we cannot really correlate a specific temperature, let's say, to a specific impact, let's say, for instance, an admission to the hospital. In some extent, it has been demonstrated, but to do it in a way to develop early warning system is very complicated. So as a result, because of this limitation, and despite the fact that there is a high level of occurrence and projected exposure of hot and humid conditions in subtropical and tropical region, typically, rarely we have appropriate heat wave heat health warning in those regions. And one of the explanations is because of the lack of awareness that humidity and other factors are significant determinant of heat, and is a big limitation in developing early warning system. More too often, we just look at the temperature, and it's not good enough to develop early warning system. Saying that, in a wider Southeast Asian region, there have been some very good attempts to create appropriate heat health warning system. One is in Singapore, where there is the heat health early warning system based on humidity and inclusive NGIS, and it has been tried. Another one is in Australia, where in Australia there is a prototype of a heat health product, which is called HeatMap, and I think we will hear about it tomorrow afternoon. And it has been developed for the Northern Territory of Australia. And then there is a case in Vietnam that I'm going to present now. In Vietnam, they don't have a formal heat health early warning system, but the Vietnam Red Cross, together with the support of the German Red Cross, they have spearheaded the development of heat health trigger for the basis of a forecast-based financing project. So I will present just a little bit this project with regard to the early warning system. So the Vietnam Red Cross have targeted 3 cities, namely Hanoi, Haiphong, and Da Nang. In those cities, there is a deadly number of days per year between 43 to 122, and some studies show that there is an increase of hospitalization during heat wave, and as well, the VNRC did a lot of survey, CAP survey, and they saw that outdoor workers are very exposed because about 2/3 of them have symptoms of heat exhaustion during heat wave. So that's the target of their early action, street vendor and people living in the slum who don't have access to air conditioning. And they have challenges to develop early warning system because in Vietnam, again, traditionally, they use only temperature as for defining heat wave, and the definition is when the temperature is above 35 degrees. As we have seen, temperature only does not capture the impact of heat wave on human health, and an heat wave event should be actually determined based on a combination of temperature, but as well humidity, and if possible as well wind. And for that, it's good to use a heat index. Unfortunately, in Vietnam, the National Met Office does not calculate heat index. That was a big drawback for the early warning system. Another point is the data on morbidity and mortality were very difficult to access. So therefore, they couldn't have data on impact to wish to use to develop the trigger. So what did they do instead is they work with Vietnam Institute of Hydrology and Climate Change, in short, IMEN. And IMEN, they develop a heat index methodology specifically for the Vietnam Red. And with this heat index, they as well calculate percentile, 95, 97, 99 percentile, as a way to capture somehow the impact. Because actually, heat index is designed in a certain way, which is already somehow taking into account what could be the impact on the human body, because it's designed taking into account humidity, and therefore it's a good way to somehow look at the impact. It is a methodology which is used actually in USA by NOAA to issue heat warning in America as well. So how does it look like? So as you know, for humanitarian sector, it's very important to know the when to act, when to start working to reduce impact of heat wave in this case. So IMEN can forecast 6 days in advance extreme heat wave, and an extreme heat wave is considered when the forecasted heat index, which is the red line on the graph, exceeds the orange line on the top for 2 consecutive days. So basically, the orange line on the top shows a threshold for heat index based on the 97 percentile in Hanoi. So how does it work? The 6 day lead time acts as a kind of readiness trigger. And when it's reached, 6 days before then, the NRC start preparing the early action for heat wave. And it is only if the trigger is reached still at lead time 3, or 3 days before the heat wave, then an early action protocol will be activated. Actually, as you may know, in the Red Cross movement system, we have funding mechanism through the FBF mechanism which allow to automatically release money. And then with this money, the Vietnam Red Cross Society will implement anticipatory measures. So that is when to act, but we as well need to know where to act. And again, the Vietnam Red Cross Society, with the support of the German Red Cross, they have developed a kind of impact forecast mapping methodology. So what they did is they look at data of vulnerability. Basically, they look at the percentage of elderly person with disability. That is the first layer of information. Then they look at information of exposure, which is the percentage of people living in a poor dormitory and slum who do not have access to air conditioning. And then there is a third layer, which is the other layer, which is provided by IMEN, where they use satellite image from past summer. And what did VNRC is to use GIS software to basically compile those three levels of information to select the 10% the most at risk ward. So it's kind of overlaying the three layers to select the where to act. So basically, that's the way Vietnam Red Cross is working. They have a trigger for the when to act and an impact mapping for the where to act. And how does it look like in terms of implementation process? So there is a first trigger at day 1, which is 7 days before the heat wave. VNRC headquarters will enforce the branches, the sub-branches, and they will launch a Facebook campaign at city level. And then at day 2 and 3, which is 2 days and 3 days after the first trigger, VNRC will check the availability of volunteers, and they will start deploying them. Then we will have a second trigger at day 3. And after that, the NRC will issue an approval, the leadership will issue an approval, and chapter will be informed as well as stakeholder within the cities. At day 5, a second Facebook campaign will be launched, and as well the media will be informed, which is 1 day before the heat wave actually. And volunteer will be deployed for early action. Then the volunteer will carry on the early action during the heat wave. So basically, that's the way the early warning system is functioning in Vietnam. And I wanted to give this example. We will have another example of early warning system tomorrow with our colleague from Star Network in Pakistan. And tomorrow as well, we will have further presentation from the NRC where they will explain exactly what they are doing as part of the early action. So thank you. I think now I will stop sharing my screen, and if there are any question, I will start answering the question. Here we go. Yes, hello, can you hear me? Hello.
We can hear you.
Great. I do not see the question. I can see them now.
Hi, can you see them? No?
Yes, I can see them. I also, to be honest, it's difficult for me to read. So in your country, heat wave alert is mainly distributed through TV. Local governments are using community. Sorry, I cannot read the question. Can you read it for me? The screen is too small.
Sure.
Yeah.
In our country, heat wave alert is distributed mainly through TV and local governments, and are using community speakers to raise awareness with people on heat stroke, heat exhaustion. But the real challenge is people's behavioral change. People are dying despite these efforts.
Yeah, actually, yeah, that's a common issue that we have when we do awareness building. Awareness is not changing behavior. We know we need to go beyond that. That's really true. And actually, as we will see tomorrow with the example in Karachi, as well as in Vietnam, we need as well to propose to change the behavior. For instance, in Vietnam, the person are invited to go to a cooling center in which we explain to them what to do in case of heat wave. And because they are already going to a cooling center, they start to practice the behavior of going to a cool place during a heat wave. So I think we need to look at two aspects to this question. We need to have, before the early warning system, to have a long time period of capacity building and to develop awareness message as each season starts to prepare the audience to receive the early warning system. How precise are early warning system in regards to heat wave? Well, it depends what you mean by that. I mean, for Vietnam, actually, the false alarm ratio is very good, actually, as well as the accuracy. And I would say it's as well not maybe so much of a problem as long as you design action which are no regret action. What do I mean by that? Let's imagine that you raise awareness, early warning system for heat wave, and the heat wave is not happening. If you design an early action which is a no regret, meaning that it still makes sense even if the heat is not here, it's not so much of an issue if your early warning system is not so accurate. For instance, awareness building is still something interesting to do, even if the heat wave is not reached. I still believe we will be hot enough to make sense of it.
The last question, Jerome, is a request to clarify the triggering mechanism, the trigger mechanism.
Okay, so I will try. So basically, 6 days, so the IMEN, the Institute of Hydrology in Vietnam, they can forecast heat wave 7 days in advance. And if the heat index reach 2 consecutive days, so the forecast of the heat index reach 2 consecutive days, the trigger, then an early warning will be issued at 6 days, 6 days before the heat wave. And then we will wait and see, because it's like a readiness trigger, let's call it this way. We will just have a bit of awareness at this moment. Then at 3 days, when the accuracy of the forecast is better, at 3 days there is another forecast, another trigger. If it's confirmed, then the early action will be implemented. If it's not confirmed, meaning that the heat wave at the end doesn't take place because maybe it's raining or something happening, then the early warning will be stopped and we will not take it to action. The Vietnam records will not implement early action. So there is a trigger for readiness and a trigger for activation or a stop mechanism if ever the heat wave is not confirmed. I hope it's answering the question somehow.
Perfect.
Yes.
Yeah, we have a couple of more questions here. We're a bit short of time.
We are
do you want to address this today or maybe tomorrow during the sessions?
They will be addressed tomorrow during the sessions. So that's all right. I think given that we're a bit behind, we should move on.
Okay. So I have a couple of questions still here regarding national societies, if national societies or organizations present today collaborate with local or national meteorological services. Please, we will wait for your answers very quickly and continue with the next presentation.
Yeah, and actually it's a very important question because it's where starts the early warning system. You do need to have a good relationship with your Met Office.
Well, answers are coming through. We have 4 positive answers, 2 no's and 2 don't knows at the moment. Now the yeses are increasing. Good. We can give just a couple more seconds to continue. Well, we have received 11 answers so far, and 7 are positive to answer no, and 2 don't know. So should we go ahead?
Yeah, I mean, the next one, yeah.
And what type of support do you need for a heat wave early warning systems? This is kind of a specific question. This is the moment for you to write your concerns, requests, etc. We have a couple of answers coming through. A guideline for financing mechanisms, assessment, a planning, and early warning system.
Can you show us maybe the answer? Because it doesn't show on the screen. Sorry.
It's not
If
shown?
it's possible.
It does.
No.
Huh. Really?
Can you?
No, we still see the answer of the previous question.
Oh. Lucy, do you see the same?
I can see
the answers.
Okay.
Okay, maybe it's only me. Okay.
Sorry about that, Jerome.
No, maybe I have a problem of connection. Don't worry.
But I will repeat it. I'll repeat the answers for you. The type of support that we are receiving here are a guideline for financing mechanisms, assessment, planning, and early warning system, technical support, capacity building tools, guideline, good spatial and temporal scales for max temperature and historical data, capacity building, guidance on how to integrate these into existing early warning systems, either improve access to better data and ways to share clearly or simpler triggers for the specific context.
Wow, that's a long list. That's a long list, but that's great. We will take note of that.
Yeah, and useful evidence that show behavioral change as a result. So I think these are great answers. And I will just go to the following slide that is related to the heatwave guide. So this slide will be open for our next section.
Yes.
And I'll give you the word.
So
Jerome, go ahead.
So actually now we are going again to have our colleague Madhav of the Red Cross Climate Center, who is going to close the session, basically presenting us Heatwave guide for Red Cross and branches. You will see many of the slides he will show you. You will already have seen them because it has been presented. And actually, this guide is a kind of everything you should be knowing as a Red Cross to start working on Heatwave. So, Madhab, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jerome. So,
yes.
Yes. So yeah, hi again. So yeah, I will try to be very brief on this. So basically, yes, now I really wanted to introduce you all with the guidance materials, because a lot of the information that has been shared before in different presentations, I think were like adapted from the guide, I think, which we have been talking a lot now. So just to before introducing to those guides, I would just like to play a quick video. So basically, this is a video around how we could prepare the Red Cross national societies for to plan for the heat to extreme heat in the cities. And yeah, I just then go through later on how we can implement all these actually, so through the guides. Yeah, please go ahead.
Catalina, can you play the video?
Lucy is sharing. We don't have audio. You can on the top section of the screen, the black part, you can up the small square, you can enable the audio sharing.
And Red Cross Red Crescent movements. Heatwave and Red Cross Red Crescent movements. It is important that the national societies understand the risks and vulnerability of deadly heat waves in the cities. They can take some simple, low-cost and well within the mandate of the Red Cross Red Crescent movement actions to save human lives. The question is, how can national societies be involved in heat action in cities? Branches can stay in touch with the local meteorological office to explore developing high temperature or heat warnings. The branches can work with the national headquarters and the corresponding government agencies to monitor extreme heat and make sure the city inhabitants are aware of high-risk weather. The branches can work with city stakeholders such as local government, universities, businesses, civil society, faith-based organizations, and others to develop a heat action plan for their respective cities. Furthermore, during heatwave, in collaboration with the local authority and other city stakeholders, the Red Cross or Red Crescent branches can undertake several measures, such as public messaging, household visit, school visits, drinking water distribution, provide first aid, setting up cool space, monitoring workplace and workers' safety. Immediately after a heatwave, the branches can work closely with strategic partners to update coordination plans for the next heatwave campaign, while capturing lessons from the most recent heatwave action. Remember, a collaborative effort with the city stakeholders and urgent and timely action by the Red Cross Red Crescent can drastically reduce deaths due to extreme heat.
Okay, can we have the slide share again? So, yeah. Okay, great. So can you go to the next slide? Next one, please. Next one. Yes. So yeah. So these are the guides that we have developed. And this particularly focuses on how better we can help the city authorities and also kind of help the Red Cross branches in planning for the heat wave. So there are two guides. So one guide is specifically focused around engaging the people working with the city authorities, like how better they can prepare, plan, and also kind of respond to the heat wave, and at the same time also do a bit of like after action review to get kind of to have the learnings from those actions so that they can better prepare for the next heat wave. Whereas we have the red one guide is specifically targeted for our Red Cross Red Crescent branches, and this is we have really bring together the information around like what is exactly the heat wave, like what are the risks, who are the vulnerables, and also at the same time also looking at the like how we can kind of how the Red Cross Red Crescent branches could plan for this upcoming heat wave season. Also at the same time, if there is a kind of imminent heat wave coming, then what they can like do as a kind of preparedness or early actions, and also if there is a kind of heat wave, then what are these different response measures. So all these are kind of informations we have packaged in this guide, and this guide contains a lot of like these different activity sheets, action cards, and also the case studies, bringing together a lot of different case studies, like case examples, how things are kind of the early actions, the preparations for the heat wave are being done across the globe, particularly through across the Red Cross movement and also beyond. So these are some things we have kind of bring together in this guide. So I really request all the national societies to go through the guide, because a lot of the information which have been presented today have actually can have like refer from these guides. So you'll get a lot of information. So I'll just give you a quick walkthrough of what are the key information that have been involved, like incorporated in this guide. So obviously one thing is around like the collaboration. I think this is something we'll be hearing more tomorrow as well. And here in the guide, you will also we'll see like who are the partners we need to collaborate, what would be their roles, because this will be really critical and key in order to like better prepare for the heat wave, because we need a bit of collaborative effort. And then also, yes, in terms of seasonal planning, like how better we can plan for upcoming heat wave seasons, like how to engage our volunteers, what kind of actions we should be doing at that time, and similar when the heat season is just starting, then what could be the appropriate actions that we need to undertake. And even during the heat wave, like the particular response measures, strategies, what we need to implement, how we can do that. I think that's also really important. That is something you'll be finding in the guide itself. So that's one thing. Next slide, please. And also, yes, a lot of different actions you will see, activity, what kind of activity we can do, like the conducting public awareness campaigns, also doing this home outreach visits, how we can do that, evacuations, and also making sure the critical services are not disrupted during the heat wave. So it's both for like we are also kind of trying to support through this guide the city authorities to develop this heat wave action plan. At the same time, also national societies and the Red Cross branches are engaged with the city authorities so that they also implement these different actions for the preparation. So yes, I think public messaging, that is also one of the key, and how could we make this public messaging very effective. I think this is something also you'll be finding in the guide, because this is really crucial. The level of information that we need to provide, what are the key elements we need to include in this public messaging. So just like the timing, the location, the impact, what is the scale, the probability, the chances of the heat wave, and also I think what kind of actions they need to do. So all these I think have to be in the public messaging. So these are the elements that need to be considered. So that is also you could find in the guide. Next slide, please. Yes, I already mentioned how better we can collaborate or partner with the relevant authorities, or like beyond that, so that we have a wider impact and also like achieve our like goal at a much larger scale. So that is also something you will be finding in the guide as such. Next slide, please. Yes, I think this have already come up a little bit in the Lucy's presentation, but yes, I think this is also really important, because after all, I think it's the cities that are kind of most exposed to these heat wave, and what are the different like the proper urban planning methods, what are the things that need to be intervened so that we could make these urban areas, these urban settlements very resilient to the heat wave. So just like having the school payment, urban greening, how we could do that, community participation. So there are a lot of things, like a lot of activities, a lot of actions, a lot of ways that could be done. So just to give you a glance of what's happening around the world, like and particularly within the Red Cross movement, like what our different Red Cross branches, Red Cross societies are doing. So yes, you can see a bit of glimpse of different activities that have been done. So yeah, I'm just kind of giving the water to the homeless people, also like having some cooling centers in place, also having like doing some home visits for the older elderly, and also making sure there are these recreational places where the most vulnerable, particularly the children, could be could make themselves cool during. So there are a lot of things happening. So I think more you will hear tomorrow as well as we start to listen a lot of the case examples across the movement. So next slide, please. Yes, just like also in terms of media advisories, there are the template. You can also find this in the guide. So just to make things simpler, so what the template of media advisory, what it should contain. So this is something the national societies could kind of rightly adopt and kind of use it in terms of doing this outreach program to the most vulnerable for the heat wave. So next slide. Yeah, also yes, different tips you will find, like how to keep the outside workers, outdoor workers safe in the heat. So those are the things also you could find. A lot of the infographics are also kind of in there in the guide for the national society. So next slide, please. And yeah, in addition to that, to those two guides, we have also developed a lot of campaign materials, which can be rightly shared among the national society, so that they can then start to use as a main resources for their public outreach program before and during the heat season. So yeah, these are also like a lot of infographics, campaign materials we have been developing on that. I think that will be really also useful, particularly in having this public awareness program. So yes, next slide, please. Next slide. Next slide, please. Yes. So just to sum up, so like how exactly we are now trying to implement the guide or whatever information that we have provided in the guide. So how we are kind of implementing in different cities in Asia. So I just wanted to give you a quick brief on that. I think this is one of the really good examples that we have initiated in two countries, in Nepal and Bangladesh. So I have like my colleagues from Ramiz as well here, so who is actually leading this project, and this is actually something we are really kind of adopting whatever there is in the guide to help the city authorities in these cities to better plan, to develop this heat wave action plan and also implement them, and also kind of engaging through our national societies, particularly through Nepal Red Cross and Bangladesh Red Crescent Society. We are also kind of doing a lot of this capacity building trainings to the colleagues. Maybe I think more can be elaborated by my friend Ramesh. So Ramesh, over to you, just to give you a quick snapshot on how we are kind of taking forward this initiative in these two cities, Nepalganj and Rajastri. Ramesh, are you with us?
Yeah. Hello. Thanks, Madhav. Thanks for introducing me. And I'm sorry I need to sit in the back seat at the moment because I got COVID infected and presently recovering from COVID. I'm doing much better though. So that is one of the reasons that I'm in the back seat today. But just to give a quick overview that what we are doing in this city. So basically we are doing three activities. We have very tight deadline. So we are doing three activities in this project. We are as you have already understood now that there is no universal heatwave definition. The heatwave definition varies city to city, country to country. So we're trying to develop the heatwave definition for the city, for the respective cities, for example, Nepalganj city and the Rajastri city. So for that, we need to identify the threshold, like Jairam presented in his presentation, like what would be the threshold, what is the limit when we can call it it's a heatwave season. So we are developing the threshold for the cities. We are identifying the heat hotspots. So not necessarily all the area in a city is equally vulnerable. Some of the cities are mostly vulnerable. Some of the cities are less vulnerable. So we are identifying which are the areas are most vulnerable in the city, which we call as heat hotspot that we are doing in these two cities. Thirdly, we are developing the capacities of the Red Cross branches, Red Cross officials, Red Cross Red Crescent officials, and the branch managers and the volunteers, as well as the other stakeholders. In continuation to that, we are also implementing a lots of awareness generation program, which is again in a question now because the rising COVID numbers and the COVID scenario in both the countries, in Nepal and Bangladesh, in both the countries under lockdown. So we have developed a roadmap like how we can do different awareness generation program, and we have planned it out already. We are hoping in Nepalganj we will start soon. Our plan is just ready. We're just waiting for the a little bit of relaxation in the COVID lockdown, then we can start it. So we're doing a massive campaign, awareness campaign material, awareness campaign for a month. We're using different platforms, like since it's a COVID time, so we are mostly using social media site, like local TV channel, the social media sites, like which can be, the messages can be posted in the Facebook, or like making the social media materials that we have also developed, like Madhav just presented, like the campaign materials we are developing. So one of the campaign materials is social media graphics. So we are going to, we are planning to viral them into the WhatsApp messages, so it reaches to everyone. So as much as we can do digitally in the awareness generation program, we are trying to do that. Apart from that, we will be definitely putting up the posters and the strategic location in the cities, and also the miking. All those things will be carried, will be done. That is something we'll be starting soon in both the cities once the COVID restriction a little bit easier. Apart from that, one of the main key deliverables that we wanna produce under this project is the heat action plan. So along with the different stakeholders, which is like mostly like the city officials and the respective Red Cross branch, we are like bringing them together, and the other stakeholders, we are just bringing them together, developing a heat action plan for the respective cities. So the heat action plan, as we have already seen, as Madhav has already presented how the guide looks like. So we are in line to the guide, so we are developing the heat action plan for the respective cities. So the action plan will be divided like into 3-4 categories. For example, like preparation of the heat season, like how to prepare during the heat season, and during the heat wave, like during the heat wave, what should be done by the branches and by the respective municipalities. After the heat wave, what they should done, and basically the longer term planning, longer term urban planning intervention that is required to reduce the heat risks. For example, like recommendation in the building construction, or like urban greening, or making green roofs, or increasing the cool or permeable pavements, or making car-free zones, water services, like make flexible water demand, water services, energy management plans. So those are also a long-term plan that we are also trying to incorporate in the heat action plan. So in a nutshell, so the three in the action plan, there will be 3 main components, like pre-heat actions, during heat actions, post-heat action, and a longer urban planning action. So what are required. So this is the main outcome, or this is the main activities that we want to do through this program. But again, probably we need to tweak a bit we need to tweak our plan a bit, because the COVID scenario, and there are lots of requests are coming from the city, from the Red Cross branches, that probably there are many activities that we cannot do. So probably we have to see what ultimately we produce. The project, the deadline of the project is we have to finish it by September. So initially it was till July 2021, but now we got a extension, so it has to finish. The timeline is till September 2021, and the project is being funded by the CDK in Asia, who is CDK in Asia, and the UK Met Office. They are the main funding partner for this program.
Jeremy, I think, yeah, I think we will have to stop on that. Yeah, thank you. Sorry. Yeah, you were about to finish. That's great. Yeah. Ramiz and Madam, thank you so much for this introduction to the guide. We really invite any national society to look at them. Thank you already. You put some links there so they can and upload it. I think we will not have the time to play the movie. I would prefer we take some time to answer some of the questions. I think it's more relevant, if you don't mind. We can still put the movie in the link if people want to see it, but I think we should accommodate the question now. Can you see the question, Mahab?
Yes, I think, yeah, I'm seeing that.
So maybe let's try to accommodate some of them if you can.
Yes, so yeah, there is one question regarding how you support to adopt these guidelines. I think this is something Ramiz was also kind of explaining. So we have developed the guide now. Basically, we are in the process of adopting to at the country level, and this is something is already happening. So I think a lot of learning will be coming from that. But I think the way the guide has been developed, I think it's really like really a practical guide. So it can be kind of really implemented at any country context. So it's just that possibly if the national societies really wanted to like better prepare themselves for this heat wave and also kind of engage with the city authorities, then probably I think we will be more than happy to support in that process, like how we can better make the national societies adopt or kind of implement the different steps and process that the guideline has outlined, the activities that you have been mentioned. So that is one thing. Another, yes, how to develop a detailed plan of action focusing to the vulnerability. Yes, I think, yes, this is also something you'll be finding in the guide itself. So if you see the guide, so it starts with basically looking at the heat wave risks, figuring out which areas are most prone to the heat waves, then going through the who are the most vulnerable. So that is basically the starting point, and then building on that, then there comes the collaborations, engagement with the respective those stakeholders, the city authorities, or even the stakeholders at much lower scale, like the community level at such. And then developing a plan of action. And the plan of action, I think, which Rami's already mentioned, it basically covers not just something like the response actions during the heat season, but also like the whole process, the whole continuum. So starting from the seasonal planning, what we should do, what the Red Cross volunteers should be doing in that time, and when there is a kind of heat wave imminent, then what are the actions that could be taken, and during the heat wave, like what are the different actions that could be taken from the branch. And also I think if the heat wave action plan we are really working for, like doing for the city authorities, then I think it covers a broad range, like because there would be not just about the vulnerability of the people, but also I think the vulnerability to the critical services, like the water drinking water facilities, the energy, a lot of things I think have to be taken into consideration into that action planning. So it mainly depends on at what scale we are really kind of developing these action plans. So I think this is something we will be doing. So yes, I think there is a nationalized oriented with this heatwave guide so that they can understand. Yes, I think this is something we really wanted to understand from this webinar as well, like to what extent the national societies are really aware of this guide. And if they are not aware, then I think we are really happy to support, like to have a bit of orientation to them, just to like walk them through the guide, and also like help them like how they can kind of implement the guide into that context. So I think this is something also we really wanted to get the information from this webinar as well. Okay, there's another. I think these are the key one. I think maybe.
I think
looking at
the
the time.
rest we can compile them and answer them in the report. Thank you so much for all the great information and for all the insights on the Heatwaves guide. I think it was great. Thank you so much, both of you. And I will just quickly go through a couple more questions. We know we are really over time. I'm sorry about that. And thanks to all the participants that are still with us.
Managed. I'm very sorry for that. But we go to the wrap-up closing session. And for that, we have a few questions to ask you, because we really think we need to adapt our support to you, and we have specific questions related to the support that you may need. Here we go. Yeah, first is about if you already have used the Red Cross branches that Madhab have presented. So it's not only to have seen it, but really to use it. Yes, let's wait a little bit more. We are still have 24 persons in the room, so maybe we can expect a little bit more answer.
And thanks again for staying with us.
Okay, so yeah, we are getting a bit of increase
Yeah.
in the number.
Of yeses.
We are not aware of the guide, so I think it's.
And from the discussion I have with some national society, it seems unfortunately that many don't know yet the guide. So I think it is the opportunity today to share further. Maybe we can go to the next question, no?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So would your organization or national society be interested in a training on heat action planning for city? So Madhab and Rami spoke about specifically action planning, and would you be interested? Yes. Good. Great. Maybe
we have 5 yeses and 1 don't know.
Yes.
But we have
That's
a positive answer overall, so I think this is a good.
Yeah. It's not very surprising, and it's good to see interest.
Good.
Maybe next one.
So here is just wrap up.
Yeah, it's just we would like to know what you have been learning or find interesting so far today. So you are invited again to use menti.com.
Or maybe since we're over time, we can also pose this question tomorrow morning when we're all.
Yeah, we could do that maybe. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
This was the final one,
yeah.
but well, we have good still receiving answers. So I think this is. I think we can close it, but yeah, good answers are coming through.
So good strategy.
Super.
Existing early warning system, positive input, actual impact, guidelines. So yeah, we have a lot of guidelines, as you can see in first aid, but as well the city guidelines. So let's make use of it. That's great. Livelihood is a new topic, livelihood and heat, but we are starting to work on it. Thanks you, Subhanu, for your presentation. So we can see here livelihood and heat wave as being one of the key learning. Great. Thank you for that. And maybe the last set of questions, because I feel very embarrassed. We are so late. Very sorry for that. Yeah, so basically, yeah, we really want to know which kind of support you would like to receive from us, from the Climate Center in the coming months and years. So we have several options that you can see on your mobile phone, and we ask them to put the first one, second one, and third one to rank them basically. So maybe Catalina, you can explain how does it work with the ranking?
Yes, the idea is for you to rank these options with the.
So can you say the first option because? Yeah, we go.
Sorry.
Yeah,
well, right now the first one is heat waves and long-term DRR, heat waves in urban context, heat waves and public awareness and public education, and heat wave action planning. We also have in 5th place right now heat waves and early warning systems and heat waves and livelihoods.
Oh, it's very active. I see a lot of voting now.
Yeah.
Great.
Heat wave and early warning systems are now on top. And
maybe the screen froze a bit. I still see heat waves and long-term DRR in the first place.
Yeah, me too. At first, yeah.
And heat waves in urban context second.
I
Yeah.
think you are.
We've got our
Lucy,
work cut out for us. Super.
Well,
It changed very quickly, but okay, we have 8 voters, 8 participants voting right now, and we have the first one, heat waves and long-term DRR, heat waves in urban context, heat waves and early warning system, heat wave and public awareness and public education, heat waves and livelihoods, heat waves action planning, and heat waves and first aid, and heat waves and health. That's the prioritization we have. They're very, very rough from this session. So
Perfect.
I think that this was all from Mentimeter. So we'll close it now.
I think it's a good closing to close this session with a request of support from the National Society. I'm very sorry we finished quite late, but I think we have a very interesting, I hope for you, very interesting sessions. We learn about basically the cofactors, the cross-cutting aspect and interdisciplinary aspect of heat wave, looking at first aid, health, looking at livelihood, looking at urban context and long-term area. So thank you so much. I think I will stop now and we'll invite you to join again tomorrow. Tomorrow is about experience, first-hand experience from National Society. So they will tell us how they have done it so far. And in the second part of the afternoon, we will have a session on collaboration with external partners, which I think will be very interesting. Lucy, you want to add? I see you are on screen.
I just want to extend big, big thanks to all of the presenters today and to all of you for attending, your participation, your ideas, and sticking with us today. We really look forward to seeing you tomorrow. So take care and have a good rest of the day or evening.
Thank you so much.
Jerome.
See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah, see you all in tomorrow. Thank you so much.